All right, so if you're looking at Bitcoin right now and you're following crypto market, you're seeing red. There's blood everywhere. I have indicators on my phone, and it looks like there was a murder scene that happened on top of it. This was to be expected. None of this is as brand new, and as we see the development of what China's doing over in their country, they're cracking down. And personally, I didn't think this was going to have such a big effect. I'm a little surprised, but as the news keeps developing, we see that all the news is pointing towards it. Bitcoin prices extends drop after China intensifies crypto crackdown. They want now banks to go in and regulate and to prevent people from trading cryptocurrencies. And so I was looking at a bunch of videos today, a lot of mining equipment, warehouses full of mining equipment over in China, and you could just see they're just turning off all the lights one by one by one by one. And this is tanking our market right now. I don't feel as if it was such a big blow. I still feel as if the market's just breathing, but we're going to see what's happening in the next couple days. Let's see what else we got. We have some other big news. So Kramer used to be a big supporter. He recently sold. He's saying he sold all of his Bitcoin knowing that China was going to have. He almost sold it.
He said after the news that came out of China, seeing the Bitcoin drop, I almost sold all of my holdings in Bitcoin. That's what he said. From CNBC.
See, all of this just seems like such hype. I feel like if the news is saying it's already kind of past what it's meant to do for an investor's point of view.
Well, the news is always going to be trailing what's happening, right? They just try to get as close to it as possible. But I honestly think that this coverage is happening because all these companies realize this is an asset class that is persistently available. This market is not going away anytime soon. So as long as the market exists, if you're not covering it, then you're missing out on a percentage of viewership of people who are, who want to just trade Bitcoin or are interested in the crypto markets. So I mean, I think, most stations are going to cover it at least some degree just so they can give their viewers some modicum of information about it, even if it's just small, just to keep them, apprised. But I know CNBC Pro does more in-depth research into this stuff. You have to pay for it. But,
Now, during this whole time, I feel like everybody's been waiting for that time to buy back in. Right now, I feel like we're at that crossroads. We had a what is it? A cross line.
Death cross.
A death cross. Yeah.
Death cross.
Yeah, we had a death cross over the last weekend.
50-day crosses over the 200.
And from that, I mean, we just saw. Let's look at Ethereum really fast. As of, let's see, just today. Today I was looking at 15% low. Looks like we've increased since then. But we've dropped down below 2,000. We started recovering. If we could look at last night, what did we get down to? 1,863. From there, it was a quick bounce. It doesn't even look like it lasted that long. Let's look at these numbers.
Wow. Honestly, it's going to recover. That's what I know. I'm just hoping that it doesn't recover before the market collapses, because if it recovers and those guys get more ammo to keep putting in these naked shorts and manipulation or do anything, then that's just going to mess up all the progress that we've been making.
I don't think you can short Bitcoin though.
No, I'm talking about the institutions on just the NYSE, the market. Right. So they could invest in Bitcoin and then take that money out.
Oh, I know what you're saying. I see. And then use it.
And then use it for their own collateral, their own funds.
Use it to back up their bullshit.
Yep.
So
that's what we don't want. But I believe it's still going to go up. Like at this moment, everything's rocky, and Bitcoin, Ethereum, the whole crypto market, Josh was showing me, everything's going according to the same trend. They all have the same up curve and down curve. and then it's going up again, and it's interesting.
All of them, and that's why when I was
it's a
talking to
pumping dump.
Jeremy, I was asking, is this something that's ever been seen in the stock market, where you see a complete, and this isn't even the first time. If we look back, probably about, I want to say, a month and a half ago, we saw the same trend. It was a consistent dip throughout the whole market, and then it was a recovery. Now, each coin recovers on its own pace, but the fact that all of them showed, and you could like put the charts all next to each other, all of them are doing that same little line and stopping there, as if, you know, kindergartner was just told to, okay, repeat and draw the same line, and the same thing happened across the whole market.
Right. You see pump and dump strategies. You don't normally see them in large companies because they have so much volume that it's difficult to pull off. But you see them more often in pink slip stocks, right? The penny stocks, anything that's very low, because they don't usually have a lot of volume and their stock price is so low that you can buy an actually significant portion of the float at a time. So you can buy of the shares available, you can buy lots of them, and then you can easily pump it up and then dump it back down. So you can drive investor sentiment to say, oh, look, the price is going up. Actually push the price up with your buying, get people involved, and then as it just kind of takes off after that, you kind of let the residual go up, and then you sell out, and then you see those huge spikes. So you normally see those in pink slip stocks. So now you're starting to see them move into these, you know, more institutional style businesses with many more investors. That's why this is taking such big center stage, because if this was happening on, you know, this happens on you know, penny stocks all the time. But nobody gives a damn about penny stocks because nobody invests in them, nobody covers them. They're you know, they have no analysts. They're small companies and, you know, pennies on the dollar. But when you start doing it to companies that have thousands of investors, that has, you know, millions and billions of dollars of market cap, you know, then you start to see it and you start paying attention to it. But yeah, no, this definitely, these patterns do exist. It's just moving its way through different assets now, different classes of the same asset.
So here I'm finding an article saying that Michael Burry, he did warn people on his Twitter, but then he removed the tweets. Is that a recant, or
No, that's him saying, I don't want to get in trouble by the SEC, so I'm just going to put out some subliminal messages, and I hope you catch on. That's
Michael Burry is a big name.
Mm-hmm.
So like Elon Musk,
He's an
they
influencer.
talk, people listen. But the other thing is this too. Like, don't get me wrong, Michael Burry is a very smart, very, very smart man, very, very talented investor. But that doesn't mean he's always going to be right. Even if you make big bets, you can make it wrong. During 2008, everybody thought he was a lunatic, right? That was crazy until it turned out to be correct. There's no guarantee that what he's saying is correct. I personally agree with him because I think that these markets are giant bubbles. But he may have just taken it down for that reason, and for the other reason is he just wanted to make the bet. You know, I mean, because also if he makes that bet and then people start trading it down, then he doesn't make as big of a win. Right? If he decides to make a play against cryptocurrency, and he told everybody, and everyone's listening to him pushing the price down, then there's not as much room to make money in the end. But
it's definitely becoming a little bit more complicated than just the regular crypto market, as these big institutions are just taking over. Do you see?
Well, it's becoming more like a normal market.
Yeah. Do you see it regulating?
Investors.
Do you see it regulating this year, or is this a process that takes maybe 5-10 years?
I
think that the SEC is going to push for regulations. Everyone's going to push for regulations, and it's only until when those rules come out will we know when they're going to start stabilizing as coins or currency or an asset.
So this is huge. I mean, everybody's wondering, when's it going to crash? Everybody's been staring at the market, 20% dips, 40% dips. I'm currently looking at 50% dip over the last 2 months.
But what is it up for the year?
Let's see, Bitcoin. Well, for the year, Bitcoin was doing really well. Do I have Bitcoin still up? I don't think so.
It's probably still up above 30%.
It should be way more than that. To the year, so we're here 30%. Let me just do a quick. Not, because we have to remember Bitcoin was still super low.
Right, Bitcoin
To
has
the
been up
year,
tremendously.
yeah, to the year, we're still up 237%.
Yeah,
And so, like,
it's a lot of growth.
this isn't necessarily something that's the craziest part is that this is the volatility that's we're used to seeing in crypto. But in I don't know. See, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised on how this is all progressing. We're either going to continue this bull market or we're going to go right into a bear market, and this is the week. I mean, I'm clenching onto everything I'm holding right now, and so is this a buying period? That's going to be your tolerance to risk. Is this your holding period? How patient can you be? If this does drop off, are you willing to purchase more and wait for the next bull run? These are all questions that I wish I could ask some analysis, because I feel like the more it starts getting into reverse repos and all these SEC rules, this is going away from the simple fundamentals I was using, and it's definitely adding variables that I'm glad to hear. And if anything, if I wasn't hearing it from you guys, I probably would never know or have a full understanding of why the crypto market is taking such a hit. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
It's a wild market out there. So we're gonna keep tabs on all these things and get more analysis on it, because once the market falls, I don't doubt that crypto is gonna also take a hit as well, or it might just become someone's safe haven. We don't know.
That's what I'm hoping for. I want it that your market crashes and my crypto goes strong, and I know why it hates that.
That would be like, hey guys, so the stock market collapsed, so real production is gone. You know what we should do? We should pile all our money into that thing that has no real production.
What do you mean no real production?
What production does Bitcoin create? It is used as a form of payment, which again is only valuable because it can be converted back into fiat currency. Like when you pay someone in Bitcoin, the only reason that they accept Bitcoin is because they know they can get US dollars for it. That's the only reason why. Like they're not just like, I want to store this Bitcoin, or they believe that they'll make money because they'll trade in it, so they'll hold it and it'll pump up and then they can sell it. But I've heard that people think that this is a safe haven like gold, that this is inflation free, which is lunacy for a currency. That when the markets go down, this will go up. And I don't doubt that it would, right? Like in reality, I don't doubt that people would pile into this asset because they're like, oh, this is an alternative. The markets are going down. Everyone pile into Bitcoin. I don't doubt that'll happen. My question is that really what should happen, right? Is that really what's best going forward? I mean, you're looking at what looks like a giant head and fucking shoulders pattern.
That's exactly what I was telling Jeremy.
And the problem with that is that a head and shoulders ends with the price going down in the long term. And the problem with this is, here's a problem with the fiat currency. If China, the world's largest foreign investor, 50% of commodities consumed, one of the largest players in the world, if they don't allow you to mine it, nor allow businesses to interact with it, can it really be a global currency?
Well,
if the biggest players in the market don't want it, then how can it be a globalized currency? How can it replace fiat currency if people say, I don't want to use it? Not even I want to use it. I won't allow you to use it. Then it just becomes, it becomes an asset. It never becomes a currency, because China is one of the biggest players in the world. That is a big deal. Like if China and United States and like places in Europe said no Bitcoin, what market would be left for Bitcoin? How would you use it as a currency?
Do you now see that other people are either going to follow along with China, or do you feel as though they're now going to just miss out on this cryptocurrency and they're not going to be there when everything stabilizes, And then they're going to realize that they made a mistake, just as they did realize that it was a mistake limiting them to only have 2 children.
Great answer. And that's our show, guys. We're going to come back tomorrow. And
First of all, two big
I
points
saw
here.
Wyatt ready to blow up right there.
First of all, China has a ridiculously large population of poor people. So their population mandate was an attempt to try to get them to stop reproducing and just have tons and tons of more poor people, because a lot of China is rural and poor. But then they realized they made a mistake because birth rates are down in China and the United States and in most places. So they reversed this. And they're like, you can have 3, 4 children. Please make more children. We need more people to work. Because in a communist country, if you don't have a good working class, you don't have shit. So the other major thing here is I don't think that cryptocurrency, as it is now, will ever be a currency. I think what will happen is countries will make their own digital currency, digital coins that they can control and produce, so they can use it as a tool and have the ability to affect it in the event that they need to affect it because of how the economy moves. I mean, think of it this way. Think of in 2008 if the government couldn't bail us out. How do you have a bailout? How do you have stimulus? If your country goes through COVID and your currency is crypto, but your government isn't making crypto, then it doesn't stimulate. It can't do more. It can't stop evictions because it can't pay people to keep them inside, because it can't produce money to give to people. What
So
if
that's
you need
where
liquidity in
the
the market?
country would have to adopt crypto, like El Salvador. So
Create
What I'm
a
saying is
legal
no,
tender.
but they can mine it, right? So this is the thing. So the idea is they can mine it. So if they mine it, they can produce it. Here's the problem. The dollar used to be on a gold standard. Just like we say, oh, we buy cryptocurrency, 21 million Bitcoin is the max. Once we get to it, there'll be no more. Bullshit. Absolute horseshit. When the US dollar became too big and there was too much production, we need to make more. Guess what happened? The gold standard, that was gone. Bye-bye. Gone. No more. You don't think the same thing will happen in cryptocurrency? In fact, if Bitcoin becomes a legal tender fiat currency, do you think that their 21 Bitcoin will be enough to circulate forever and we'll never need to have more? No. So what do? They rewrite the
Satoshis.
code. And now they can, Satoshis, whatever it is, they can, some sub of Bitcoin. Then you have this problem where it's like, okay, well, we need more. So we'll just rewrite the code. How does that differ from fiat currency?
I don't
Right
think
now
they're
it
able
looks
to-
different.
Can they rewrite the code?
If you can write code,
No, that's not
you're
how that
telling me you
works in
can't
blockchain.
rewrite code.
No.
But then so then if you can't, then what happens if that's the end of the money, but you need more?
No, that's the point. It's that you can't rewrite the code. You can't create more.
Okay, no. So what I'm saying is then, okay, let's say that's true. They can't rewrite the code. You mined all of it. Well, shit. As we've learned, people keep growing. Populations keep needing more. The complexity of economies keep growing. Our GDPs keep growing. If we can't actually make more money, then do we effectively stop growth and say, this is as much as we can grow. We can never grow past this point.
Could a solution also be the use of other cryptocurrencies because, for example, I know Tezos. Tezos is being used by France. They're the ones who are adopting it. They're the ones who are wanting to use it and start, creating. And I don't want to talk out of place because I haven't read about this in a while. But one of the reasons why I did invest in Tezos so early was because of the adoption that France wanted to use over it. And I see that as a play of, we're not going to be using Bitcoin. Instead, we're going to be, creating our own or relying on our own cryptocurrency.
Well, you get to the same dilemma. So let's just say every country claimed a crypto for themselves. I claim Bitcoin, you claim Ethereum, that guy claims Tezos. Everybody claims one. That's my country's currency now. We can mine it, and we get exclusive rights to mine it, because that's the only way you can guarantee it's yours. Otherwise, if everybody else can mine it, then it's not, what's the point? You can't produce it. So you get exclusive rights. You can mine and produce it. Eventually, just as we've experienced already with fiat currency, when you hit the limit, you're going to tell me that's enough? What happens when you hit the limit and you need more? What happens at that point?
So how about this? You're not going to be able to hit the limit until, I believe there's still 120, 150 years before we hit the limit.
That is the same argument.
Have you
we
checked
can
to
keep
see how
borrowing
long
into the future?
But it's not borrowing. So there's only a set amount of Bitcoin that's able to be mined, and the production is going to stop at a certain time. But that's not going to be within our lifetime.
Okay, but that's the same problem we have now. People were borrowing tons of money over the last 50 years because who gives a shit? It wasn't in their lifetime. Oh wait, but then we all got here and we're like, well, it's in our lifetime. So what I'm saying is you need to think of you keep coming up with like new sustainable solutions where it's like we'll just remove fiat currency, replace it with crypto, with the idea that right now we're mining such a little. Imagine if it was globalized. Imagine if it was a currency. You're not talking about mining operations that are occurring pop up. You're talking about every country as their currency is mining this all the time. You're talking about governments using their resources to mine this. I don't think 150, 200 years is really the time horizon when you say, okay, we're all going to adopt this, we're all going to mine it, we're all going to build it, we're all going to use it. Not to mention, you'd have to figure out which coins are the most useful because you have like 7,500 different crypto assets out there and more every single day. Just like we talked about, like Pog coin. They don't actually do anything. They just exist.
Yeah, but I don't see a government, looking at Pog coin, Dogecoin, Shiba coin. I don't see any countries looking at that and being like, we want to back our whole economy on this one. Like,
right. So then you say there's only a handful, right? There's like the top 10 or 20 coins that are the most valuable. Which countries get the rights to mine them? And if every country can mine as much as they want, and they substitute that for the fiat currency, now you have even less of a pool to draw from. Do we not still get to the same problems down the line where we're going to need to make more and we're going to run out of the ability to produce it? Because that might not happen in our lifetime, but it happens in 20 generations. Well, then fuck the guys in 20 generations. That's the same argument as saying we'll borrow in our government now all the debt because 60 years from now, those people have to worry about it. And then in 2050, we run out of Social Security, and they're all like, "Too bad. We were taken from it through the U.S. government. We were borrowing from the U.S. Social Security budget, and we were just taking that money out because we don't care about today. We have more than enough for the future." Then guess what? 2050 rolls down, like, we actually don't have any more left. Oh, that's great. I'm talking about sustainability in the long run. So, we are a society built on patches that just keep carrying generations to the next one. But also, how do you deal with that with the debt? Are you going to change all the debt that exists in the world and you're going to denominate that under cryptocurrency?
Oh, that's a great question.
And then how do you manage the rates? You have them replacing LIBOR. You have problems with all these interest rates. How are you going to build a system where the currency value fluctuates and interest rates fluctuate separately, where they're not really in line? Are you talking about overhauling the entire financial system, every business, every bank, every government, creating entirely new sets of metrics to deal with an entirely new currency?
I don't see why not. Why would we say that we'd want to keep our unstable system, our current banking system, when we're getting screwed as a people? And the only reason that Bitcoin was ever made was to go against these banking systems.
Right. But I say that the system we have right now isn't the best, but it's the best so far.
It's
what
crap.
You're saying is you're not saying
it's what's brought us here, right?
Wait. To say that it's crap is
I mean, yeah.
It is the greatest. The capitalism has been the greatest driver of wealth. Over 200 years ago, 95% of human beings were dirt fucking poor. Dirt poor. There were no houses, there was no TV. Dirt poor. Okay. Now in 200 years, capitalism has effectively brought the masses out of poverty. The problem is we get all these things mixed up. We have a problem with greed, and we build a system that supports the wealthy so they can protect themselves and become wealthier. But as individuals, we all have lost scope of what we actually need to survive. We have a problem in this country.
The banks are leeches. That's right. What you have to know.
That's
the banks
all I'm
are
saying.
Leeches. They get reverse repos. They could get millions of dollars from the Fed. They find these loopholes. That's what you need to know. You can back them up all you want, but we all know that they are corrupt and they have
and
caused
we're getting
major
screwed.
Financial crises.
And White's supporting this. So we're just going to end it right there. White is full support of us being screwed as a society. Let's keep giving our millions and millions of dollars to these banks institutions to screw up this market more.
When there is fraudulent activity that exists, but to say that the banking system is created to be fraudulent is 100% incorrect. The system as it exists now has many flaws. There are many cracks in the foundation, but the building still houses all the people within it. When you talk about undoing all that and making a new system, I think everyone thinks there's going to be this nice transition where it's all going to be like seamless, and we're not going to notice this big change. That.
Nope.
When these changes happen, it's going to hurt. No, it's going to hurt everyone. It's not just going to hurt the billionaires. The billionaires, in fact, will probably be the safest because they'll have as much capital as possible to weather the storm. Every one of us down here at the bottom, eliminated. You're talking about such a large change that you don't understand that when the wheels of change begin to grind, the middle class will be decimated. We're not talking about hardships. We're talking about poverty. We're talking about no more schooling. We're talking about no TV, no Netflix, no podcasts. We're talking about everything comes to a stop for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We're talking about recreating the financial system we have now. And I agree that we need major changes. I think the best thing for humanity is a reset. Okay. But to think that the system is going to simply be, we're going to do this and it's going to be clean and effective is wrong. And to think that it won't be clean and effective, it'll just be kind of rough is equally wrong. Because what you're asking for is not just changing a piece. You're saying we're going to change everything. We are going to uproot everyone. We are going to change that's how Armageddon's happen. That you have to think about all the people. There are billions of people on Earth who aren't politicians, who aren't running hedge funds, who are just everyday people. All of those people are going to have an opinion for what happens when the economies begin to crumble. And it's not going to be, we'd love to wait patiently while the system changes. It's going to be, I want to feed my family, and that guy over there seems to have food. I'm going to go over there and take it from him, and he's going to lose it for his family.
Well, I'm just glad that there are multiple currencies, multiple assets. We are on a world that, hey, not everyone's going to agree with the United States, and it's not going to be an uproot of the financial system. There are going to be transitions. We're going to see how this world turns out because we're still flipping living in it.
Right. But as I say, my fear is that it's not going to be, we're having a tough time changing LIBOR. We're changing one interest rate calculation. That is going to be a tremendous systematic change that we can't even fathom the effects of. You're saying we're going to change the currency and we're going to change the way we value everything. Because when you get rid of fiat currency, what is Bitcoin worth?
Well,
like for instance,
fiat
you price your
isn't
house
really worth its
right,
weight in what it was.
You price your assets with fiat currency as an underpinning. So, and what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is valued by fiat currency. The common denominator is the fiat currency. When you take all that away, you can't just replace the Bitcoin and just stick that and say, my house is worth this many Bitcoins. How do you know that? Because Bitcoin is worth this much US dollars. So you can make that comparison now. But if you get rid of it, how many Bitcoins is your house worth? How much is one Bitcoin worth? Are you going to compare it to Ethereum? Well, how much is Ethereum worth? The problem is our system was built this way. It evolved over a long period of time. And I'm no economist, so I don't understand how all that stuff is going to necessarily work.
How about
but
this?
It's not just going to be a simple switch and change.
The value of fiat was based off gold, right?
Well, the US dollar was.
Yeah.
Most other currencies.
The value of Bitcoin is based off of the value that its people who hold it give it.
Right, but we define that in US dollars.
And this
Take the US dollars away and define what a Bitcoin's price is.
Well, if people were able to, trade seashells for Bitcoins, and for some reason these seashells, became so valuable because they were able to exchange for Bitcoin, I think other currencies can take over this market and replace the US dollar to then say, yes, we're going to be the ones to back Bitcoin by our money, by our standard.
But the other problem is, okay, you then need to produce it because currencies all are produced by countries that can produce money.
I think that's why countries have been smart to start collecting their Bitcoin. They've been smart to start holding it and to go into it and to, I mean, there's no reason that this doesn't make a big splash and other, institutions are looking at it. Countries are looking at it. First country to adopt it. It's been progressing in the same way.
El Salvador doesn't have any other options. El Salvador is like, we're taking a long shot here and we're hoping that we can make money, not because Bitcoin will be worth a lot in the future, but because it's worth a lot of money right now and there's a hot market. So we can get a way of literally, you can pay people in El Salvador for things via Bitcoin that you don't have to actually go and spend your money there. They don't have to get access to a bank. They can literally send money via the internet. And I agree with the blockchain. I agree with the blockchain, smart contracts. I believe that is going to be incorporated heavily in the future. But I don't think it's going to be as it is now. Like, I don't think digital assets are not going to exist. I just think that like China is doing with the digital yuan, the US will do with the digital dollar because they're going to want control, they're going to want security, and they're going to want to be able to actually make and control these things when their economies need help. Because if you can't mine enough Bitcoin to give stimulus to your economy, and then the price of Bitcoin fluctuates, how can you calculate? How do you ever calculate how much a project's going to cost? How do you calculate?
And that's our meeting, guys. Thank you for showing up today. As we go about bringing those guys back, if you guys have any questions, if you guys are interested in this topic, definitely shoot us comments, don't shoot us. Come on our page, subscribe to our YouTube. We definitely have a blast. We like going at it. I feel like these are the topics of the future. Let's see if we could bring these guys back. Let's see. Hello there. Okay. So yeah, we could just go ahead and bring this sucker to a close.
What, the meeting or the topic?
Both?
It's up to you guys. We can skip all this other stuff.
Not
We
sure.
did-
We're
we
hitting
just-
our hour 20. So
Well, we only covered like 3 topics. We did like half an hour a topic.
if anything, we could continue, and then we could see Jeremy. I think you got to go, right?
Yep, I'm peacing out. So,
Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor.
all right, I'll see you guys later.
Much love. So, Josh, me and you can talk about this.
Yeah, let's finish off these topics. Or you
Okay,
want to
wait.
talk about this? Okay, so yeah, the future of financial protocols, DeFi's, that's not in the future. That's today. We are living in the future. These financial protocols aren't far out, and real-world applications are coming in. To say that we can't grab like an attainable cryptocurrency, yeah, I'm not here saying that Bitcoin's going to be the future. Not at all. I'm looking at maybe Ethereum 2.0 being closer to a future than Bitcoin currently. And so as they start revamping and as everybody's looking towards the future of this being a scalable, sustainable, proof of stake type of option that will hopefully bail all this cadoodling of banks and its ability to manipulate the market. Nobody wants a decentralized market more than the crypto society. Now, I say that knowing that we are moving farther and farther away from being decentralized.
I have a question. So, you take down the banks, you get rid of fiat currency. Well, most people, right, to make interest in things, they own assets through a brokerage.
Uh-huh.
So would you then effectively say, we'll take the power from the banks and we'll make the brokerages that can trade cryptocurrency that allow us to trade them, they become the people in control. And the thing about this is money is not broken. Okay, fiat currency isn't broken. Human beings are broken. We don't have gun problems in America. We have violence problems. Spoons don't make you fat. Your lack of self-control makes you fat. Money didn't destroy the system. The invention of currency and debt, these were some of the most amazing inventions of mankind, able to create the most amazing things and bring the majority of people, out of poverty and into much better standards of living. Okay. Think about today, like the average person that has like Netflix and watches TV and has a car and lives in a house somewhere, even if it's the cheapest level, 100 years ago, none of that existed.
Yeah.
So when you think about, I think I'm just lost my idea. When you think about how this works, the system, it's not the money that broke the system. It's not the debt that broke the system. It's not the traders. No, it's the people. It's not the institutions that exist. It's the people that run it. So my question is, you can change all the currencies you want. You can change the whole system. But the common denominator throughout history as to corruption and fraud and misery and gaps in wealth and power has always been human beings. Greed, selfishness, desire, lust, pick a problem and humanity has it. That's the problem. Because most people, because I think there's a whole other problem with if you just store all your cryptocurrency in your own computers, your own houses, and it's all digitally collected, and you need, because again, the other problem is the power, right? If the power goes out, you don't get access to any of your money anymore. And that's the same thing for banks, but you can go to a bank and get cash. You can take out physical cash. You can't own physical cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. No matter how hard you try, you can't take that money and hide it under your mattress. You can't put it in a safe somewhere and say, this is my backup money. Your money exists on the internet. Even if you take it and store it on a digital wallet and put that digital wallet in a safe off the internet, if you can't access a way to extract and then find somebody who's willing to accept it, that is as worthless as a paperweight.
Isn't that, though, the same as our current fiat system?
Only, yeah, I agree.
Like,
if you
everything
have all
right
your money
now
in
is
bank,
a digital asset.
Right.
My bank
But
tells me how much money I have because it's connected to the internet. I have no idea if it's
Right.
stacking hundreds for me. There's
Right,
not.
but
There's not hundreds of dollars.
if you
in there,
wanted
but-
to, right? If you wanted to, you could go to the bank and say the ATM and empty your bank account. You could do it.
you can.
And then you'd have that physical money. So no matter what happens outside, you can literally hold your money and use it to pay people because they can see the physical value. Hand them $1, like, this is a US dollar, recognized around the world. And this took like 150 years to get there, to make it as recognized as this. So you have that money.
But I also think of the 1920 crash, when people wanted to go back to their bank, wanted to pull out,
That's
their
a run on the
money.
bank.
Now here's
That's
the
a
thing.
run on the bank,
Here's the
though.
thing.
That's a
The
panic. That's a
difference with
panic.
the difference with Bitcoin is that my Bitcoin has a specific value, not a value, a specific number, a blockchain. What I identify my money isn't said that, this $20 bill is the same as this $20 bill. In fiat it is. In Bitcoin, the one Bitcoin has a different identifier as this Bitcoin. It's marked differently. And so you can have this one and I can have this one. And any day of the week, anytime, I can say, hey, this one's mine. And everybody in the network, in the Bitcoin blockchain, can verify that this one is mine. Now, if your $20 and my $20 gets in the hands of somebody random, well, who's to say who's 20?
Okay, well, here's the well. First of all, you could track your money by serial number if you wanted to, because all money has unique serial numbers. Every single bill has a unique serial number. It's not digitized, but it has unique serial
No
numbers.
one's storing money according to serial numbers. They're not saying
Because that seems insane, but that's what you're doing with Bitcoin. You're basically giving a unique serial identifier to the coin. So it's the same concept. One's just easily identifiable and trackable because it was done digitally. The other one is not because it was done on paper. But it's the same exact concept.
except for its reliability. As in, that's
Right,
the
but
point of
here-
blockchain itself, is that it validates itself, not a bank telling me that I have this amount.
Right, and I agree with that to the degree that when you talk about reliability, you're talking about it from the operational standpoint, assuming that all of the network is still working, assuming that you can access, like, look at it this way, you have all that money in your house. Let's just say hurricane hits, right? Hurricane hits, wipes out power for 2 weeks. All your money is in a digital wallet. How are you going to pay for food?
What happens when credit cards and debit cards don't work?
No, but this is the difference. What I'm saying
Like,
is
no
you're
one's
correct.
carrying cash around. Like, I agree. I
Yeah,
agree
no,
with your.
wait. I think that everyone should have some storage of cash. I always have at least $200 in cash in my wallet at all times as emergency money in case I need to pay for something in cash.
Oh,
My
you're gonna
parents taught me that
get
when I was a
jumped
kid.
so hard by me.
Right.
Just randomly in a dark alley, and I might be like, I don't even care. I know there's $200 in there.
I track my serial numbers, bro. I write that shit down in my notebook. So I'll go to the government.
When
When
it
you see
gets-
him, he's got this in my. That one's mine. That one's his. That one's mine.
But
that
here-
one's mine.
But see, I could spend that money, and that money will then go into circulation. The second you spend a Bitcoin, that can be tracked. That can be
Well,
followed.
I think the thing we're debating
But
here.
I
is
do
whether-
agree the electricity, the accessibility, and the ability to use it
that's
in
the thing, like,
emergencies.
Because that's the problem though, because if I have a storage of dollars, let's say I have a safe at home and I can have $1,000 of cash there, use it as an emergency, right? I go in, open my safe, the power's out. I don't have power for 2 weeks, but I need food and gasoline. Can't pay for it electronically. Credit cards and debit cards are crap, so you should always have a cash storage. If you live your entire life digitally, you run the risk of not having anything. I think you should always have some cash on you, but because if the power goes out,
I run
all of your wealth
digitally.
doesn't matter. Like we said that story about the guy in the dump. He had $250 million of Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter because he couldn't access it. So it didn't matter that it was there. If you had $250 billion of cash in one place, that would be a lot of storage. That would be pretty hard to move. But he could store it on a USB drive. It could just fall out of his pocket down a storm grate and be gone forever. That's instantly gone. Not to mention, your investments, I mean, your cryptocurrency is not FDIC insured. If I put my money in a bank, the government guarantees up to each one $250,000. That was really important because that helped promote trust in banks to say, listen, put your money here. If the bank fails or there's a run on the bank, the government will reimburse you eventually. You'll have it on record and you can get your money back. That's not the same thing. There's no Coinbase guarantee. If you lose your money, that shit's gone. So there's a lot of things here where it's like it's all decentralized, but now that puts all the risk and responsibility on the owner of that. You have to be able to keep track and maintain all of your stuff because you're not going to get any insurance protection. You have to make sure that if you put it and if you take it, let's say, because remember, if you store all your stuff on Coinbase, that's still centralized. You have now, all of you collectively, 150 million people have their coins there. So then if you want to take it out, that's fine. But now you have to never lose that. If you forget your password or it gets corrupted or damaged, because remember, technology depreciates. These components, they break down. So if that happens, no one is going to help you. There's no way around it. So when I think about, I think that fiat currency will never disappear because it's physical value, literally the ability to hold and store it and not have to have any way, you don't have to have any limits to accessing it. You can store it just like gold. I can buy gold bullion and bury it in my backyard. That's mine. I can dig it up. I have gold. I can store cash. I can access that cash and I can use it to pay people because there's a much higher likelihood that someone will accept $10 in US dollars than, hey, do you have an power and internet connection? Yeah, if you have that, I can hook up, get my Bitcoin for you, and then I can send it to you. Oh, wait, your system doesn't accept it? Okay, but what if we made it so your system could accept it, right? Because again, you're also assuming that of the places that will be existing to take it, you will be able to find enough places to take Bitcoin and have a network to service that Bitcoin, have a network to service those payments. And then you have to assume that the entire supply chain is on the same board as this, because if at any point in the supply chain, any one of them, somebody has to convert back to fiat currency, cryptocurrency or Ethereum or whatever you want, Bitcoin, whatever one you want to use, cannot replace fiat because it's all done on the premise that at some point it can still be converted back, right? Most people buy cryptocurrency by spending US dollars. You don't go and mine it on your own. And guess what? This is the other caveat. To mine cryptocurrency, it's not free. You have to pay a tremendous amount of capital. And can you pay Bitcoin to mine Bitcoin?
I mean, okay, so the only charges of Bitcoin mining are just going to be the upfront costs and then the electricity to run it.
But how do you pay for that?
How do you pay for it?
The fiat currency, right? You pay with US dollars or francs or yuan or euros. So
I feel like like you're making valid points, which for me, my inventor side is just like, if you see me smirking, it's because I have another idea and another idea and another idea of what's going to be needed in order so that when we do come up to a point that, let's say, it is possible that in the future we do get to a point that we're using Bitcoin. I agree. All your statements are valid and they will have to be addressed, but the solutions aren't that difficult compared to trying to fix the inflation problem of fiat.
But I think that there will still be an inflation problem with crypto. It's just not right now. Think of it this way. You didn't solve the problem of inflation in the long run. You solved it for yourself right now. And if the argument is the reason we're in this hole is because of the selfishness of human beings, well, you're just digging a hole for the people 200 years down the line. It's the same cycle, except now we're okay for now. Because what happens when cryptocurrency runs into the same problem? What's the alternative from that? How do you improve?
We didn't know Bitcoin was going to come out 15 years ago. 10 years ago, some guy, 11 now probably, had a dream that they did not like the banks so centralized. And so in the future, when this becomes re-centralized, I do imagine a new system, a new technology being adopted. I mean, there's no way.
You still do the centralization though, because again, that's
the part of power. Yeah, exactly. That's part of humans wanting control, and I believe everything will regulate itself to the most powerful having their hands around the biggest purse.
Okay. How does that change if you have most cryptocurrency? What if the richest people say, okay, well, I just own the most crypto?
Then they're the ones who are putting the value behind it. I'm perfectly fine behind that, because if we have billionaires saying, my crypto's worth this much, nobody's going to be questioning that.
Well, right, but how does that solve any of the problems we currently face? There's still the power is still
Oh, yeah,
consolidated
no,
among the
those are
few
just
elites,
small things.
and then you
Those
still
are
have
tiny
banks that are
things.
centralized.
You're saying
Those are the whole theories, though. Like if you say we want decentralized currency, but eventually we'll be re-centralizing it into some other form of institution that's not necessarily a bank, right? We can undo the banks, but you're going to have something like a bank, right, to manage it. I mean, the only reason you get staking rewards is when you own the Tezos on those networks, right? You can't just own, you don't just make money for having it offline. You have to be connected. You have to be part of the system to get rewards from the system. So here's the thing: what happens? We shift the power from the banks. We create an entirely new regime of power. What stops that new regime from exhibiting the same problems we do now? These markets, these businesses, they became, so overbloated and fraudulent because people started early when the markets were young, made their gains, passed the laws, set up the politicians, played the game, built the barriers to entry, and said, okay, look, we're up here, you're down there, and you can't scale this cliff. What's to say that doesn't just happen again? It just happens in cryptocurrency. Because again, the common denominator is human beings are going to have to run the system. We're not trusting AI to do this. So at some point, we have to have a role in this. And if we have a role in this and there are people at the top, what's going to stop them from doing the same exact thing? Because now there's no laws on cryptocurrency. So then the people that are early, they make the rules. What stops them from making the rules so that all the rest of us, once again, it's natural. If you want to have billionaires, you have to have poverty. You can't have everyone be rich. It literally doesn't work. So in order for you to have that, the middle class, there has to be a massive number of people to buy and sell and work and produce. That's how economies work. We just get upset with the speed of it. And having banks centralized, as you said, is an important part of finance. We need some form of centralization. We need to have rules and regulations to maintain markets. We are hoping, as we just talked about, that the SEC, a regulatory centralized body, is going to help fight these big funds. Why? Because they have the most capital. Well, we're looking at these funds who are just buying up billions of dollars of crypto. What stops them from just saying, okay, we convert all our fiat into crypto and we still own the world? None of the problems have changed, except now you got rid of your ability to physically own money and put it all digitally. So if these companies own the majority of it, now they have much bigger control over it, because you can't literally take your money out and say, it's mine. I own it separate from you. It's on the network. It's all centralized. That's what I'm trying to say. I see the problem where this
let me ask you this
in a different way.
You've named all these points of failures in the future over a market that we're currently experiencing in fiat. Do they not apply? Where's the points of failure in our fiat? And I mean, is it going to last forever and we're just going to continue being screwed?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's bull. Like, why would anybody want that?
Right.
Like,
and that's why
like
that's
me
why
as a normal person, like without like financial knowledge of, anything, the premise that the banks have so much control, and the whole reasoning behind Bitcoin was to minimize that. Although there is a potential, and yes, of course, money is going to talk and money is going to take control. But
what about mobilizing capital? Because banks don't just take your money and do bullshit. Banks facilitate the movement of credit. You want to fund giant merger acquisition,
which screws us.
You want to fund building a factory. Listen, you want to building a factory. That factory is going to cost $25 billion to build. Do you have $25 billion? No. And does the counterparty really want to risk and say, okay, we'll sell this to you. We're going to hope, right? There's all these things like counterparty risk and default risk. We're going to hope that you're going to pay us all that money. We're going to give you all these assets and just hope that you're going to do it. The banks come in and say, no, we will underwrite. We will control the flow of money, and we will get a cut of that for granting that service. Banks play an essential role in an economy. You store money there, you make interest, they handle loans. Because who handles loans and facilitates loans? Because remember, loaning, right, that entire system of loans is how banks existed. The facilitation of credit has been one of the largest drivers of wealth in the world for everyone collectively. Mm-hmm. So when you think about that, who manages the loans? Well, you need banks to manage loans, to lend out crypto assets, right? You need someone to facilitate that. You need someone you can trust, someone you can regulate, someone you can centralize. So we can trust that millions and billions of dollars being sent here or loaned out here are being tracked and measured and collected. That when I put my cryptocurrency in here and you lend it out to somebody, that you're an institution that's going to say, we'll control that, we'll underwrite it, and we'll insure it because we're going to use your money. If an institution can't, banks take all of our money and then lend it out to people who then build things with that production, pay the loans back with interest, the banks make more money, and then our money's safe. If you remove that middleman, how do you facilitate the movement of credit for these big projects while also making sure that my capital is safe? How do you do that? You eventually need to create, let's say it's not a bank. You create something like a bank. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. We have banks now. You call it, I don't know, the quadrant. Okay, the quadrant. The quadrant's job is to make sure the money goes in and out properly and measured it. Who runs the quadrant? AI's never going to happen. Human beings. Well, then human beings, they run this, they make their money, they make their cut, they expand. More people want to be quadrants. So they build more quadrants. And then you have big quadrants, little quadrants, regional ones like regional banks, large ones like giant Goldman Sachs investment banks, right? These giant quadrants that then handle all this flow. You create the same problem, you just do it in a different way. And we're seeing that because when you have a company that can buy 100,000 Bitcoin, that's someone that owns a tremendous amount of the market. What's happening is we're already seeing in the early days of the market, the future big players. We're seeing the people that are like, you know what? We're going to be gods. And they're all easily able to buy up all this capacity. How does that help us get less screwed?
I like this. Oh man.
How does that help us become less screwed? Because the way I see it is they're just going to screw us over differently. Yeah, they're fucking us over in the front. Now they're going to fuck us over behind.
Yeah. It's like we're already being screwed over now. When you put your money in the bank, they're going to, times it by 10, right? And then credit it out. You can't, I don't think you can do that with Bitcoin.
Well, so then how do you facilitate credit?
See, credit is that's where
what makes things happen.
Which started getting me a little bit more interested in this, because these are all potential like future businesses. These are all, those are the exact questions of whoever figures this out first. And I believe instead of having the banks, instead of having the banks do all their investing, why not let the individual do that same type of investing that the bank's doing, skip the bank as a middleman, and then, for example, you have these staking pools. People are able to stake their own money in order to get a return on interest. And so from there, why not have a decentralized credit established? Why not have other people be able to, instead of having the banks?
Who holds decentralized entities accountable for fraud?
Well, and see, that's where it comes into the technology of blockchain. Is that the technology itself, you can't screw with one computer and then have all 9 say like, oh yeah, you know what, let's just accept what that one computer is saying. Like, the point of proof of stake is that there has to be that value there. There has to be there has to be Bitcoin there. You can't just give out credit. There has to be the Bitcoin there. And I feel that's what's going to create a more stabilized credit.
But that's where we get to a problem. Credit is this concept of trust, risk and trust. Most projects, especially today, especially as we talk about a world digital assets, these price tags are enormous. You know how many individual investors would have to be pooled together into a dark pool to fund the building of a new factory or a new highway or anything like that? Astronomical. That's what banks are for. They allow these things to happen. If you look at Germany during World War II, right, sans out the Holocaust, and look at it before it. The central banks came together and were rallied to move capital, to take Germany from a broken shell into an production economic powerhouse, because they were able to move credit.
I have the answer, but how did they do it?
Tell me the answer.
They had to give the money back down to their middle class and lower class. It was not about the large institutions keeping it. It was about the redistribution of wealth, the ability for people to work for that money.
Production, through production. The banks were like, we need you to work. You need money. You need money. Germany needs production. However, there's nothing inspiring all of these people to just get off their ass and be like, we should just build stuff for the sake of building stuff. And there was nothing to keep these production managers from saying, like, we should just hire lots of people. We should all just, it wasn't like this hive mind collective. Everyone was like, we all need to do this. It was the businesses saying, we will create the ability to pool capital and move it to different projects so you'll have the money to build and have the money to pay people. Without that facilitation of credit, you had what you had before that. everybody playing with giant stacks of overinflated money, and Germany literally ground to a halt. They didn't just inspire themselves like we'll all just build this. The central bank said we'll facilitate the credit needed to get this moving. And then as a result of that production in the future, you will be repaying it. So the money will exist. But the whole point, like your credit card is not you pay for it because you have the money right now. Your credit card is you pay for it in the future and then may have to pay it back with interest. It's the concept of being able to borrow without having the capital needed. Now, I personally don't spend anything on my credit card that I can't personally pay for, but that's because I don't want to have that kind of risk. But credit cards allow you to do that. They allow you to put a mortgage on to put a down payment down the house or down payment down a car. When you don't have $6,000 on you, you can use that credit card and then pay it off over the next 12 months. That is an immensely quintessential part of how, yes, you also have predatory lending, but that's, again, human beings finding a way to take something good and profit off it on their own. But when you take them out of the equation and you look at banks and credit and regulators as what they're actually supposed to be, you realize these are pillars of finance. These are pillars that have made this great economy. Then you sprinkle in human greed, power, and time, and you get all this bullshit. But that's human. That is always going to be human. Since the days that we could walk upright, we were trying to find ways to take and own land and have what was ours. And then as you got bigger and bigger, you couldn't just conquer, the next town over. You had to build a business and own, or you had to be a politician and govern, right? You had these growths of power and influence. So what I think is going to happen is this is a hot new market that everybody wants to get in on. And what we're looking at is everyone's is excited because this is a reshuffling of power. We have the ability to reshuffle power. But for the majority of us, we're going to end up exactly where we were before. Except now we're going to we have a potential to have a system that has a million questions that we don't have answers to, even though we're pushing towards that limit. We're pushing technological advances before we actually have the ability to answer the questions of how we'll maintain it, or how we'll secure it, or how we'll deal with it. Because profit is being made. Profit is going to be made all the way up. All the big companies, all the big capital, even if they convert all their fiat currency to crypto and then the fiat currency disappears, they will still be at the top because they'll still have enough currency to buy more than the rest of us.
I agree.
So it puts them
I
in the
do
same
want to
exact
take it
position of
back to
power.
that credit, though. I don't believe we'll need to look at credit in the same way that we're currently looking at credit. And there's also the flip side of a credit card where, let's say you want a credit card, you have terrible credit score. Well, you're not going to have, a cushy $6,000 option to use to purchase a car. No, you're going to have to start off by putting down a down payment of, let's say, $1,000. You create your own credit limit.
Right, but the whole point of credit is to provide trust and security, right? Insurance for a payment that we're going to make in the future over time. The bank will pay for my shit now, and then I'll pay the bank back. It's an agreement. It's like any loans, right? The student loans. The government will pay off my college so I can go and do my shit, and then I will pay off the government in the future so I'm able to do the thing I want to do. The institution that got paid didn't have to incur the risk, so that they're like, sure, we'll gladly accept you with this money. And then I have to make an arrangement, right? I have to set up an agreement with my loan servicer to pay it off in the future. That allowed me to go to a college that I could have never afforded otherwise. And that's where we get into these weird dilemmas. It's like, if I can't facilitate credit in the future, there are so many things that we can't do. And the theory is, yes, then prices should fall. But we are at a place in the world right now where all of this stuff is expensive because we have all these middlemen, all these rules and regulations, all these taxes, operating costs, margins, markets, all these things exist. They're all still going to exist in cryptocurrency. You're still going to have markets, right? You're still going to have businesses. You're still going to have credit. You just now have to find a new way of doing it. And the question is, if it's decentralized, how do you do it? If the federal government isn't doling out loans, how many people can't go to college? Many. And if it's decentralized,
get a real education.
Right. You can, granted, nowadays education is absolutely way too expensive, and you're better off going on Google. You'll get just as good an education because most resources are free, especially for most STEM fields.
Or just start reading books.
Right. But the thing is, you have to understand, what books do you read? The reason educational institutes, again, they are an amazing thing. They were just taken advantage of.
Point which direction to read.
Right. They guide you, because if you would just go out and learn, there is a fuck ton of knowledge to learn. How do you even know where to start? What to start on? What path to start on? What the right way of doing things are? So we have all these big things. But the point here is that you get into the same problems. And to solve these problems, you need regulation, you need centralization, you need people to control this, you need people you can trust, you need to create a system that makes it all make sense. If everything's decentralized, I agree. Maybe we drop the prices of everything, right? Maybe we revalue all of society. I have a question. When you do that, all of these asset gains that have allowed all this technology to exist, that shock to the system, if that shock to the system hurts our ability to keep the lights on, then cryptocurrency effectively has killed capitalism. Because what if the time we need to set this up and the reevaluation of value creates such a problem in the current market regime that it destroys its ability to maintain the resources to keep cryptocurrency usable?
Interesting.
Then you effectively remove fiat currency, the ability to use that, but you also don't have the ability to use the crypto assets. So you're then left with nothing, but everybody is still hungry. People don't have power. People's kids are starving. Your car's not running. Your computer's not running. You can't go to work. There's no jobs. Then you look at the world and you say, well, there's 7 billion people. That's anarchy. And then there's not going to be any cryptocurrency after that, because no one's going to be looking at cryptocurrency when there's no power and the governments are upended and the people like, we want food, but nobody can pay for food because everything's in an asset they can't access anymore.
I have so much.
Because
I'm such a huge fan on renewable energies. And to say that we're going to keep progressing with just the same technology that we're currently using is false. And to say that we're not currently adapting to our power supply needs is false. And to say that, the loss of power to everybody is just going to be a total collapse of all economies is true. I believe that energy, and this is my statement. I kind of want to see where you take this from, but this has been a thought process that I've had for a while, and it goes really, really deep. But electricity, energy, as a currency, not as a utility, and that is where
that would never work.
Progresses to storage, and this is the main part. It's going to come down to everybody's individual ability to create their own electricity.
You just created mass world poverty.
How?
I can't produce electricity. Can you?
No.
Okay,
duh.
maybe you can. But you have to buy the
you're
things
still
to do,
thinking our current time and present time. Like,
but what I'm saying is,
I can give you a number of scientific articles of where we're moving progressively closer to this. This
is not going to be within the next 20, 30,
yes,
40 years at least.
It can be.
We are currently looking at, for instance, China was going to top off about 2030 in terms of carbon emissions and then work their way to zero emission energy production and manufacturing by 2050. Joe Biden wants it to happen tomorrow. But the problem is this. In Texas and California, large amounts of the power grid are starting to be converted to wind and solar. Here's the problem. That sounds great, but it doesn't match the needs of consumption. It doesn't stack up. We do not have the capacity to build and maintain, because here's the other problem. All those big solar farms,
storage,
that requires land. What I'm saying is they literally can't store enough power at this time. And the batteries, the storage facilities, will require an entirely new, different type of materials to be mined that we do not currently have.
We don't have storages right now. There is no such thing as, you can store, but the biggest thing we have right now is Tesla trying to come out with his, home batteries, which if that continues to progress, you're going to see a decrease in everybody's electric bill. Because right now, currently, supply of electricity is by demand. So, for example, they create 100 batteries every single day, and we have 100 people. Those 100 people, they want those 100 batteries to be able to supply those 100 people, but those 100 people don't necessarily need to use a battery. Maybe 40 to 60% of them are going to use those batteries. Now that means the remainder of that energy just got wasted, just got blown. It's not being stored anywhere. Now, as we increase storage efficiency and individual production of electricity, meaning you have your own ability to store your own electricity, This
What
is
I'm saying
all
is,
progressively.
how much do these things cost?
That's not the
Because
question, and that's
that
not
has
what
to be the
matters.
question.
Because
In order to produce your own electricity, you
if
have
we're
to
in
have
a
the
failing
means to do it.
system, if we're in a failing system, it's not a matter of how are we going to get this to work. It's when are we going to get this to work? Because
If
you
Titanic is sinking,
you have valid concerns, but that's at present day. Like to think
Right,
that
because
we're going to just
pricing
be stuck like this
Bitcoin-
for the next 100 years. We're never
we-
going to go anywhere with that mentality. It's the progression of what we're going to need.
What I'm saying is this money is an extremely important thing because it allows us to do everything that we do. When we look at a country like the United States and how much debt we have accrued and the
Money or
inefficiency of our
electricity?
utility companies are heavily regulated. You are looking at 50 years before these companies say, yeah, we'll relinquish our ability to make profit so that you can have it for free. And then if everyone's going to produce their own electricity, how do they do that? They will need some way of doing that, which means they will most likely
We're getting
have
rid
to
of utility
procure
companies.
What'd you say?
We're going to be getting rid of utility companies. They can't exist in the future.
Sure, fine. But in order to remove a utility company, and so they don't produce power, everyone must be able to produce their own power. Here's the
Yes.
question. How much does it cost for me to be able to set up and maintain my ability to generate electricity efficiently and reliably?
So
How much is that going to cost me? That's the question down the line. And not just me. Because remember, our poverty level is increasing over time. So more and more people are finding themselves below the poverty level. If you create a system where you get rid of utility companies that produce power to all these places, you then you can't get rid of them. You can't be like the government and say, listen, we'll get rid of utility companies, and this is how much it costs to set up your system. If you can't pay for it, fuck out of here. No politician will ever do that. No lawmaker will ever do that. The Senate will never pass that bill. The Congress will never allow it because they're all going to lose their jobs. Never going to happen.
So
you would have to create a system that would guarantee that in order to remove the utility companies, you have a reliable, guaranteed way of getting people the parts they need and the installation help they need. Because that assumes that everybody's going to be just like, oh, yeah, you sent me a bunch of things to build. I'll just build it and it'll work. I'm talking about the electricity for my family. People aren't going to want to vote for that. And the voters and the taxpayers, they run the show. They run the show.
So
if they aren't happy, that's going to be a problem because politicians won't stand on that platform.
Aren't utility companies inflating their prices as is? Isn't it going to get to a point where
heavily right now utilities for electricity, they're heavily regulated by the government. They're not allowed to make much profit. Utility companies are really just
so then tell me about Texas and how those people got screwed over when the power went out.
What happens in Texas is this. They said, okay, there's two things. There's depending on what side you listen to, but they're all good points. The Texas power grid runs on a basic free market system, meaning that it's all supply and demand. It's not regulated by the federal government, so they don't required to spend capital to weatherize and back up and prepare. So when these freak events happen, well, you ask yourself, if you owned a power company in Texas, you're not thinking, should I spend millions and billions of dollars to weatherize my system against snowstorms? I don't have to. That would hurt my business's profit margins. Not going to happen because I care about my business longevity, and the odds that are going to happen are small. So I don't. Then it happens. Oh shit. Then what happens is because it's a supply and demand market, they are not basing their power on a regulated price standardized. They're saying, you all really want power. We don't have much of it. Well, low supply and high demand means you're going to pay $16,000 this month for your power. One of the politicians in Texas came out and said, that's the price of freedom. That day, he resigned because that was the end of his political career because he was
yeah,
a lunatic. He's like, yeah, your family's freezing to death. Oh, that's the price of freedom.
Oh shit,
you're stupid. So that's what happened. So they and then even Ted Cruz was like, we should really do something about this. This isn't right. I'm like, yeah, Ted, you were off to Cancun, okay, to escape.
Oh, I know.
Shut your friggin' mouth with your
burned
nonsense.
on that one hard.
And he went and took photo ops, him handing out water bottles, like, look at me. I'm like, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, to like one car. And
the other argument is this: Texas currently makes 20 to 25% of its power comes from wind turbines, which do not meet the consumption demand of the people. So what happens is they require more power than is necessary. And right now, we are currently in California. We had one literally yesterday. Greenouts, and we're calling them greenouts, right? They're rolling blackouts. And they're calling them greenouts because California and Texas are two of the biggest states to have let companies with under federal subsidies build all these things. They get tax breaks, they get benefits, they get credits, all this stuff because the government's like, we're going to be the king of clean energy in the future. The problem is that it's not enough. California gets 10% of its power from a fusion reaction, right? The power plant. They're planning on taking that offline. Not only does it provide 10% of the power, but it backs up all of the other systems. Their plan is not, we're going to have a solution in place before we remove it. Their plan is, we're going to get rid of it. We'll figure it out along the way. And at the end of the day, who makes these calls? Policymakers, politicians. Do you think they're going to ever have to worry about this? No. The schmucks in the middle class are going to be the ones who have the severe rolling blackouts who are stuck here like, what the fuck, guys? So the problem with that was just an argument of regulations and who should I spend money on. But we should end this and come back.
Yeah, because I do have some follow up to.
I want to keep going
to that as well. So we will be right back.
Right,
everybody. And we are back. Thanks for a little short break. All right, so you bring about all these, rules and regulations that all these utility companies are, under, right? But let me ask you this. Do you know what's causing all of your rolling blackouts? What's causing some of these fires in California? What's causing...
You talk about environmental harm.
I'm talking about the part where they're supposed to upkeep their equipment and keep it from, exploding, from, failing, from malfunctioning.
Well, that's under regulations, and
yet they're not providing that. They're not providing that level of regulation. They're not, because. In
Texas, they opted not to. They said, we won't allow our energy markets to be federally regulated because Texas is, all about the state and not about the federal government. So they were like, yeah, we're not going to follow your regulations. So without the mandate, without being told you must do this, and you leave it in the hands of people who own a company, are you going to take a big hit to your margins so that you can weatherize and keep up to date? Or are you just going to keep squeaking by with as good as it is, and then when something happens, you'll deal with it then?
That's exactly what's going on. I mean...
So
we're right. My question to everybody would be like, how much is it costing us for us to let the utility companies get away with some of these? What's the word? I want to choose my words wisely on this one.
Well, remember, most utility companies are regulated. Remember that most are.
But so I'm talking about like their equipment, as in there's been.
That's part of the regulations. They're required to maintain it. Part of the regulations are. These are your price limitations, and this is the amount of money you must spend. This is the maintenance required. That's part of the federal regulations. You're required to spend X amount of capital to maintain it.
If maintenance isn't done, and because it's a monopoly of...
But it's not.
It is a monopoly. There's nobody competing with utility companies.
How many utility companies are there? Because when you say it's a monopoly, that usually means there's like
per area, per county, there's only one utility company that you're probably buying electricity from.
You know how expensive that would be to have like 7 competing electric producing companies then in one regional area, because then you'd have this issue where how do you stay profitable? Because it's still a company, it still has to be profitable to stay open. If it doesn't make enough money to keep its lights on, then it's useless. It's a wasted investment.
But the beauty of competition is that you always have to be better than the other guy to stay alive, which benefits the customer.
Right, which means but this is the thing. This is why utilities are regulated. Utilities aren't sandwiches or T-shirts. This is power that keeps everything running. You can't let it run the same way as a free market, because if you do, then you run the risk of having outages and gaps in like food. Like imagine your refrigerator might not be on all day long. Like that's going to cost you a fortune in food. Your lights won't be on. Hospitals will always have to go on backup generators. If you can't maintain continuity of that system, there are a shit ton of other repercussions that come after that. That's why these systems are regulated. You don't have lots of people competing over utilities because it's a heavily regulated industry that doesn't make lots of money. Utility companies are not the investments you make when you want to make lots of money. They're the places you might get a stable dividend because they're generally a stable demand and a stable amount of money. But their prices are fixed and they're required to spend X amount of capital to keep themselves maintained for the most part. In Texas, they were not required by the federal law because they didn't recognize the federal law. I don't know exactly remember how they did it, but as a state, they never had problems for years and years and years. It became very apparent when the snowstorm hit because it was like this glaring, like, what the fuck just happened? You know, all these people paying all this money, no one has any power. This is the great state of Texas. What do you mean you don't have power, right? That's when that brought up into the whole concept of clean energy and the push for how much clean energy we can actually build, but how much we can actually maintain to use. Because if we build lots of windmills, and it's great, but that makes up 20% of our power grid. But remember, windmills can't generate more power than they possibly can from wind, right? They can't be scaled up. To scale up a wind farm means you have to buy lots of land. Part of what land surveyors do is they go out and they buy land in advance to create these wind farms or these solar farms. That's really hard to do. That's buying up hundreds of thousands of acres of land. We don't exactly have tons of land that's just laying around unowned and uninhabited. So
in the U.S.
In the U.S., yeah, we definitely
like
don't.
Most of it is middle of the U.S.
Most of that land is mostly owned by like large ranches and individuals, and you can get eminent domain. But here's the problem with eminent domain: you have to stand on a platform that's going to allow you to be elected with eminent domain. And if you make a mistake and fuck up, people are going to come after you. And when you take land, what land do you take? Who do you take it from? How do you play the game of being sure you? Because remember, if you start an agenda as a politician, you only got 4 years. You don't have like in China where President Xi Jinping he's president forever. Vladimir Putin's in Russia, president forever. They can enact 20-year plans because who the fuck is going to stand in their way? In America, you got 4 years, and then power, and not only just your presidency, but your power in the House, your power in the Senate, and even look, Donald Trump put 3 Supreme Court judges up there that were ultra conservative. So the way this country is built is to be a balance of checks and balances. The reason for that is so that nothing gets too out of hand. But the goal that everyone keeps trying to do is we can make more stuff happen really, really fast if we spend lots of money on it. And the question here is we're trying to give all these subsidies, we're trying to pay for all these things, but we can't quite match the demand. I'm not saying that I'm saying we should go to clean energy, but it's going to take decades. It's not going to happen this decade. It's not going to happen next decade. You have all these industries that have to change, all these major systems that have to change and be put in place. I think that people really, they don't realize these things. You need to look at them as a whole of scale approach, because you're not just changing your town. You're changing a country that's part of a global economy. You're changing effectively the largest, most powerful and influential country in the world. What we do affects the entire world. This isn't easy. So to say you want to do it quickly is stupid, because it will cost lots of money. You need to make long-term plans. The problem with long-term plans is nobody wants to put the time or the energy to invest. And companies today don't give a shit about 35 years from now, because they're getting paid now. Their investors are paying them now. Their profit margins are now. Most of those executives won't even be in office in that future time. So they don't care about the longevity. They care about their profits now. And that's human. That is 100% human. If you had a business that was making money and someone said, Josh, we're going to cut our margins in half, so in 45 years we'll have we'll have zero emissions. You're going to look at that and say, yeah, my investors aren't going to like that, and I'm probably going to take a hit in terms of my pay because we're not going to be hitting certain profit goals. So why would I, as a person, why would you, Josh, want to earn less and risk your career for 45 years from now? Craziness. Never going to happen. Because you have your own family to pay for. You got to feed yourself. You got to feed your family. You got to take care of your house. You have needs and responsibilities. That's what happened in 2008. All those bankers that were still making the deals in the lower levels, they were just doing their job. They had to feed their families. They had bills to pay. So they were like, and then people said, listen, there's 100 people that'll take your job. You don't do this, we'll find somebody else who will. So it's human. It's human for these systems to be built this way. And when it comes to cryptocurrency and saying we're going to use clean energy, we don't have enough clean energy. We can't even maintain the grids now to power everyday air conditioning and TV.
Now you're hitting the points.
Crypto mining takes a tremendous amount of power. Remember, El Salvador has plans for this. The bill isn't even law yet. We're still got like another 85 or 75 days to go before the bill becomes law, which we have to see if El Salvador can even do it. You know what I mean? This could be a giant flop that could blow up in their faces, okay? Or it could be giant technological savvy, and people are going to look at this and use it as a test case. But at the end of the day, right, El Salvador can expand because it's got room to grow. It's very, very poor. It's like a small company in a large pond. You have flexibility to change.
You could take
the
risk.
United States does not have that flexibility, whether we like it or not. We are heavy burdened in debt, heavy burden in the amount of spending and deficit spending we do. We have huge trade agreements, huge treaties. We are in one of the most divided political and cultural climates we have ever been in at least my 30 years almost of life. So you need unity. Everyone in El Salvador is on the same page because everyone in El Salvador is fucking poor. They're like, shit, why not, man? Let's try it. In America, we can't agree on jack shit. Everything is a fighting talking point. We are so far away from this beautiful, like, changing society where in order for this to happen seamlessly in a reasonable amount of time, we all got to come together first. We're not even at that point yet. But everyone's like, we're going to change the way our entire economies work. We're going to restructure the way centralized banking works. We're going to redo all regulations. We still got tons of poor people down here like, fuck that. That doesn't matter. We're going to change the world. What about the poor people? What about all the people that are at the bottom who don't have access to that technology? They're making digital currency the standard doesn't help them. It makes it worse for them because they won't be able to have access to that anyway. They won't have the capital to be able to buy enough currency now. Okay, because if you kept currency at crypto at like, $100 a Bitcoin, you could say, all right, everybody, buy it up. Let's everybody prepare for the future. What you're going to effectively see is you're not going to see a uniform transfer of wealth because the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. And if you want to buy, you're going to buy fractions of coins, fractions of things, and that's going to modulate, right? That's going to vary in value. So when you talk about people who don't have lots of money, putting all their money into digital assets that are volatile, that can fluctuate without the effect of a government, without the effect of your own investment, your bank account can change value 10% over the course of 2 weeks, and you did nothing. There's no insurance protecting you. And we don't even know if we have the power capacity to continue to make enough coins to be able to backstop you, even if the country itself adopts this measure and is able to mine those coins in the first place. So you run into this problem where, and the reason I always compare it to what's happening now is because nobody talks about, I'm not hearing people saying cryptocurrency and saying, here is the entire new system we designed. I hear everybody buying it and saying it's going to replace and it's going to change. And I'm like, okay, well, you want to replace, right? Well, this is the system you're replacing. Explain to me how you replace that and that and that. Those are very important because we're pricing Bitcoin at prices that are supposed to be the future, and we're baking in all this value, but we have no answers to how we actually replace what we currently have. And again, no one's offered an alternative reality, right? We're looking at replacing what already exists. We're saying we take the system, we remove the fiat, which removes all the power and centralization, and we add in the crypto, which creates a happy society of decentralized investors and all this wealth that doesn't depend on all these big players. But I have not heard how that's going to work and be sustainable, especially for us, me and you, in the middle class. Because for the big boys, they'll have the money to buy the systems and the insurance and the mechanisms. I don't have that. So if all of a sudden I can't use fiat currency and now all of a sudden all my assets are in crypto and then crypto fluctuates down 15%, well, that sucks. What am I supposed to do about that? Who do I complain to? That's the new standard. And I'm right, I'm talking about it right now, but that's because
I feel like all of this progresses. Everything progresses. But like, there's no way Tuesday is going to be fiat, Wednesday is going to be crypto, and like it's that overnight change. Like I believe these financial protocols that they're using and building in blockchain is to potentially benefit and maybe even help stabilize fiat and maybe decrease the amount of hours and time and some processes that might have taken a third party now no longer need a third party, and we're now using blockchain technology. And so
I agree that blockchain is going to be very useful, but you still have to explain, all the big players and how you replace them. Because you say, I want to replace banks. Banks do a lot. They do a lot. They have a lot of responsibility. They play a very important role. That's why we didn't let them crash in 2008.
I guess that's why it's more of like, weighing the good and the bad. Like, how much, at what point are they going to be doing more harm than good? And I feel at that point, that's where, crypto is going to start coming in and looking, better. I can't say that 100%, but my thought is the banks aren't shining right now. They might, have helped at one point, but how many people are going to be, foreclosed on their home because
that's not
they pretty much got screwed. Like, they screwed themselves. The banks let them.
Okay, but when you say the banks let them, the banks have a fiduciary. Most banks don't. Well, first of all, if you can't afford a house, most banks don't just give it to you. There is predatory behavior, but ever since 2008, they've been cracking down on all this, and banks have a severe limitation on what they can and can't do. So, you also have to remember this: if the bank gives you loans and you can't afford it, then the bank has the liability of all that money they loaned out that you're not going to pay back. They can take the house as collateral, but what if the value of the house changes? It's not something they want to do. The bank's not in it because they're like, well fuck. When in 2008, right, when the mortgages happened, it wasn't the reason the banks were issuing so many loans wasn't because they were like, haha, we'll just take your fucking houses and then kick you on the street and then we'll sell them motherfuckers and make money. No, it's because they were making commissions because the banks were like, we're just going to keep rolling up the hill, pool everything you sold, pool all the revenue into big securitized products, and then the risk gets mitigated across the market because people are buying this. So the risk of those loans is being passed up into bigger and bigger pools that are being bought by all these investors and all these funds who are all paying for the risk. So the risk is being mitigated out into the market. Securitization is an amazing concept, but if you take advantage of it as a human being, you can find ways to repackage garbage from all of the products, take the bottom tiers of crap, and make entirely new things that are supposed to be looking really good, but are made of nothing but the worst parts. The reason everyone kept selling the mortgages was because they were making commissions. They were getting paychecks out the ass. That the executives at the top were like, we're going to keep paying you commissions the more you sign. I got a family to feed. I got bills to pay, man. Of course I'm going to do my job, because you know what happens when you get up and say, fuck you, I'm not doing this? There's a line of 600 people in the hallway that would literally chew through you to sit in that chair. So it's fine if you don't want to do it. You'll just go and be unemployed and someone else will take the job. You're not making any big change. So they said, fuck, I'm going to keep making my money, because as a human being, I have needs and requirements and responsibilities that I have to meet. It all comes down to the human psychology. These systems didn't start out this way. They ended up this way. So the problem when I see crypto is I don't see a solution to these problems, and I don't see a clean way that people are describing how it replaces these things. I see people saying it's the future, and I think the main point is decentralization takes power away from the people that we perceive are trying to hurt us. But you have to remember something. All of these banks and businesses, it's a balance between the ability to make profit and not crushing us into the ground. And that balance will always exist. The people at the top will make the most, and they have to find a way to keep the people on the bottom as happy as possible, but to a degree. Because you can't have everyone be rich. Decentralizing currency isn't going to make us all wealthy. It's going to have the same effect. The wealthy will have more, and those of us will have less. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. But what it does do is it eliminates a lot of the structure we already have, and then doesn't have a solution on how to replace it. And the reason I say this is so important because people are talking about this every day like it's tomorrow it's going to happen. People are buying and pricing Bitcoin like that day is around the corner. But nobody sits back and really talks about this. And whenever they do, it's all like, you're a hater, you're part of the system, you believe in the corrupt big banks. No, I understand how they work. It's not the bank's fault. It's human psychology. It's the people that run the banks and the people that borrow the debt. It's a misconception with how debt is supposed to work. Even though the banks have predatory lending and offer you all these credit cards, it doesn't mean you have to take it. We need to re-educate people so that they understand how finance works, what debt is, what the risks really are. And it's not necessarily the bank's job to put on a clinic every time somebody wants to borrow. And I'm not saying that to defend the banks. I'm saying that because you need to do your due diligence. If someone offers you a thing that says, I'll give you free money, and you just sign your name on it and say, yippee, I can spend it, well, shame on you. shame on you. And if you have to do it to support your family, I understand that you take a calculated risk. Say, I need to pay for these things. That's fine. But that's a calculated risk that you take. You have to do the best to manage that risk. And the banks are not a big fan of the banks, but what banks are there for is security, capital mobilization. Yes, they do have high wealth clients that they do investment for, but they also manage pension funds. They manage retirement funds. They manage people's money so that while you work really hard, they can manage your portfolio to make sure that you have the best retirement. There's all these other services. So I'm interested in knowing the objective truth. Banks aren't bad. Banks serve a very vital purpose. But the people that run the banks, do we need to do something about those people? Abso-fucking-lutely. We need to hold them personally accountable so that their strategies do not become manipulative and predatory. But the banks as an institution is not an evil, bad thing. They're not trying to steal the power from everybody. They exist. The people at the top, if they want to play games, that's something we have to watch out for, such as 2008, such as flash crashes and market manipulations. But the institution of banking is not an evil thing. The institution of money and credit is not an evil thing. Capitalism is absolutely amazing. But the people who run the capitalist system, they suck. So that's my thing about cryptocurrency. How does it change the human element of all of these things?
How about a crypto bank?
You create the same problem. What stops that crypto bank? Because remember, if it's a bank, you have to put your money in. They control loans. They control financial activity. And they do so in an environment that doesn't have all the laws and regulations we currently have learned now. Right? We learned to put all these rules in place. So we learned that was bad, that was bad, that was wrong, rule, regulation. Crypto banks don't want to have that same problem. And having a crypto bank, that's not decentralized. And then you say, okay, we'll have competitor banks. You just made a market with now digital assets instead of regular assets.
So I'm currently looking at January 13, 2021.
Office of the Comptroller of Currency conditionally approved a national bank charter for Anchorage Digital Bank NA, paving the way for the first national crypto bank. Okay, and that's fine. Like, I'm not saying that that's not going to exist, but I'm saying, how does that keep with the mantra of decentralization?
Moving away from decentralization, would it allow? Because I haven't.
Yes, it would allow all the same.
I haven't argued about. I haven't argued about that. It's not going to be decentralized or centralized in the future.
That's the main part of cryptocurrency. So if
it's more of its ability, it's the blockchain rules, it's the laws of blockchain itself that's right. What's adding the additional ability and or restrictions that fiat doesn't have. It's less of, okay, money does this, there's rules behind that. Well, this is an actual tech of what you can and can't do, specifically black and white, according to its ability.
Right, and I agree with that, because I think that the United States government will make a digital dollar and use blockchain technology for it, but it'll still be owned by the United States, produced by the United States, and managed by the United States. Just like China will create a digital yuan, owned, managed, and produced by China.
So then
that's what I'm saying. Because that's what I'm saying. So then why would people be investing so much in Bitcoin? I don't think Bitcoin, Ethereum, I think the technology will be extracted, but the actual value of the asset as an asset to be used as currency will not exist. So why put $32,000 for Bitcoin? Because if the U.S. government actually one day steps up and says, we pass a law that bans the use of non-government approved cryptocurrencies, bye-bye. If the high-frequency trading markets, they only exist because the SEC hasn't raised commission costs. If they raise just a couple of cents, the high-frequency trading market disappears from existence because it is unsustainable. The problem is that the high-frequency trading market is so big and it already exists. Crypto as a currency does not. And we're already seeing China say, yeah, you know what? Not only do we not want miners here, you people, no more transactions in it either. We are one of the largest, also one of the biggest growing countries in the entire world. We say no unless you use ours.
With a fully regulated internet.
Right, with a fully regulated service. We control it. We know where it's going. And of course, they're going to track the shit out of it. They're going to know everything you buy. Welcome to fucking China.
Welcome to
but
the
United
US.
States wants to do the same thing too, because the CIA says we love crypto.
Yeah.
FBI is like, we love this shit, man. This is one of the old. It was either an ex-CIA director or an executive, whatever position. He was speaking before Congress, and he said, "We love cryptocurrency because it is one of the greatest informational gathering tools that we have." So the government wants control. They're not going to let a currency, they're not going to let the system be uprooted and say, sure, let's just let everything float freely. We can't control it. We can't manage it. It's like the wild, wild west. That's not how an economy works. Like, I'm terribly sorry, but that's not how a financial system works. So to do that would be to dismantle this financial system. Fine. But if you're going to do that, you either have to have a replacement that's equal or better than this system, or you have to be okay with letting the repercussions of, all right, everybody, financial system's gone, and letting the chips fall where they may, which doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't even benefit the rich, but the rich and the politicians and the big executives, they'll have the most capital to survive. They'll be able to leave and go somewhere else and hang out. The rest of us are going to be at ShopRite beating each other to death with pipes for the last pack of bananas. So that's what I think about. I think about the retail investor, the middle class as a whole. I'm thinking about 100 years in the future. We are already on a trajectory of, we've never been in this much debt. We've never had this kind of divisiveness. We have never seen this current regime where China is competing so heavily with the United States that the European Union and America have to make alliances to literally stop them from being able to come into our economy so that we can contain them, because we're afraid. We recognize the speed and momentum. We recognize the strength of a country that has a government that doesn't necessarily need to worry about the people. They don't have to worry about campaigns. They don't have to worry about voting. They can do what they really want to do. That is a threat that we are actively fighting against. So my question is, should we not be solving the other problems before we create a whole new set of problems? Because if China doesn't allow this to happen and the United States does, the United States' entire financial system would experience a huge volatile shock, while the Chinese economy would not, putting the Chinese economy as the stable, resourceful, and dependable focus of the financial markets, usurping the United States' role. A, the United States is going to do anything it can to not let that happen. B, we have never lived, us personally, in a world where another country is in the number one spot. We have always enjoyed the privilege of being in America, having the best militaries. Everybody looks to us, and that does give us some privileges and some leeway. What does it look like if we don't? We don't know what that looks like, but I don't think it's going to be as wonderful as it is now. So when I think about the long term of the trajectories of other countries, of technologies, of problems in my own country, of the ability to replace all these pieces of the financial market, my brain thinks everybody's running so fast that they forgot their shoes. They ran out of their shoes 25 miles back, and they're just like, the clothes are flying off. There's like future. We don't want to miss out. But here's the problem. If you run too fast and get to the end of the simulation, guess what happens? You jump off the edge and you get deleted. The rest of the simulation hasn't caught up yet. No matter how much you want that to be the future, if everything else can't catch up to you, if the rest of society and culture and politics and finance can't maintain the changes, they're never going to stay put, and you're going to get adverse reactions out of fear from the individuals in the system now seeing this future coming at them like a freight train without the ability to do anything about it. So
I mean,
that's what I
I live in the future, so like I see all of these things being valid. I don't see this.
But what are the answers? So, like, for instance,
well, the answers don't necessarily need to be right now. We don't have the answers to solve our current issues. Why would we say that cryptocurrency is going to be the solution? We don't know that.
Okay. So when you value a stock, right, traditionally, when you value a stock, you look at the cash flow in the future, the revenues, and you say, based on their actions, what their plans are, they should be making this much, so they should be worth this much, so it should be worth this much. If you don't have the answers, right, if no one has the answers to how Bitcoin is going to change the world and replace finance, why are we pricing it as if it already has?
Sounds like we're going to have to get a smarter guy in Bitcoin in here.
Probably, yeah.
I feel like, I'm starting to hit the limits of what my understanding of the technology is. Currently, I see a lot of... I know less about Bitcoin than I do about other cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is probably like the least knowledgeable thing I know about
cryptocurrency in general. Like, and my argument isn't like, okay, we're not talking about the nitty gritty of the technology. I think that the blockchain, smart contract.
Nah, you just shit it all over. You have no support here.
I think
crypto. You are my baby.
To implement
will
into
go
the
far.
System. But do I think that cryptocurrencies are going to replace fiat currency, and like where Bitcoin or Ethereum or Tezos or Dogecoin or any coin, any big, small coin, if any of those are ever going to replace fiat currency, No. Do I think that digital currency using the blockchain will exist concurrently with fiat? Absolutely. I absolutely think that. But it will be done by the discretion of countries under their control so that the financial systems can still be maintained and can still run, because we already do everything almost digitally. I use my credit card for most things. We use Apple Pay and Google Pay. So we already have that mindset. Culture is prepared for that kind of world. But I'm not talking about the culture. I'm talking about the financial system. You need to do it in a stable way. You can't just uproot trillions of dollars worth of financial systems and expect them to just be perfectly fine. So my arguments are always about the long-term effects and the logic behind the ability to maintain these changes in the future. I think the technology is very impressive, and I think it will be very useful in concurrently with fiat currency. But do I think Bitcoin or Ethereum or Tezos are going to be currencies that are going to replace fiat currency and be the new legal tender of the world? Absolutely not.
No, it's still too strong, and it's still too attached to, everybody using it. It's still around the world. You could take a dollar to any country and everybody knows what it is.
Right, because that's the thing. When you talk about replacing fiat currency, you have to say, how do you get a crypto, any crypto, to be as widely recognized, available, and useful as the US dollar? Because if you can't do that, you can't effectively replace fiat without making huge systemic changes.
Yeah.
And who gets to decide who gets fucked over in those systemic changes?
I guess there's a misunderstanding here. I never said it would ever replace fiat. I said when fiat failed, would crypto...
When fiat fails,
it's just a presumption.
Power will go out. When fiat fails, that's the end.
And that's where I don't see the end. I see a potential there. I hear so many potentials here. Like, trillionaires can come out of this conversation by just solving some of these basic issues that we know are going to come up in the future.
There aren't such thing as trillionaires.
Oh my goodness. You're thinking way too small, bro. Obviously, we don't have trillionaires right now, but the development of blockchain will develop trillionaires through its mass use and production. It's the technology that's coming out of it.
What I'm saying is that
articles.
Let's see. The blockchain to make, but think of it this way: if the blockchain's making trillionaires, what are they trillionaires in? Fiat currency.
Right? Yeah. I'm not saying anything like that.
So what I'm saying is, how can fiat currency fail if there will be trillionaires making money in fiat currency with concurrently growing with blockchain? What you're effectively saying is fiat currency wealth will grow concurrently with the blockchain, meaning that it won't be deleted. They'll grow at the same time. Fiat currency won't fail. It'll be an impetus for people to develop more because they can become wealthier with fiat currency by innovating. Right? If there's
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Innovation is so then fiat currency won't fail then, because there'll be an impetus for us to keep evolving, because there'll be an impetus for us to make I'm inspired to make more fiat currency. How do I make more fiat currency? Make more applications for the blockchain, sell and mass produce those things. I get paid and make more money as a result. I do these things because I get paid in them. I make money on this system. So how would fiat currency fail if it's a driving factor in the evolution of blockchain?
It's a good argument.
If fiat currency fails, if fiat currency were to fail, right? Let's say it fails, right? Money becomes worthless.
Because if Bitcoin becomes like gold.
But gold gold is a physical asset you can mine out of the earth and you can hold in your hands. It is recognized around the world as gold. Cryptocurrency is not. You can't put them in the same asset class or compare them, because one
I'm
is
not the one
heavily
doing
dependent.
It's how they want to view it.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking. Not you. I'm talking to them. I'm talking out to the world. You can't have a coin or an asset that is heavily derived in terms of its value, its operation, and its accessibility on so many other factors, and compare that to an asset that doesn't need any of those factors to be valuable. Gold doesn't need any of that shit. It just has you hold it in your hand. It's gold. It's worth whatever people are willing to pay, but it's a physical asset you can hold and move around. Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency. Crypto assets are not the same thing. They aren't intrinsically worth something, and you can't just own it and hold it and have it. It needs power. It needs a network. Remember, for these things to work, you have to have the blockchain actually functioning. If fiat currency failed and power grids went down, and all of a sudden we didn't have, if crypto assets didn't fully replace fiat before fiat failed, you would have a gap in the system, and that gap could cause parts of the blockchain to not function properly, which would then decrease the liquidity of that market, hurting the value of those coins and the ability to be used, which could then domino effect into more and more defaults and more problems until the entire system is broken apart in shambles. And without the ability to connect it all, is it still worth what it is today? We are based on the assumption that our technology will never fail. We base on the assumption that we'll always be able to produce this amount of energy. We'll always have these systems in place, and we'll find new, cleaner ways that will not only rival the current systems, but blow them out of the water. That's the assumption we work from. But what if that doesn't happen?
Well,
what
we're
if
screwing ourselves anyways. It doesn't really matter. We're either going to change and grow, or we're going to keep going on our same trajectory. And
but what if how do we know that this is how do we know this is the best way to change?
We don't.
So why are
we can't deny the
trillions of dollars?
We can't deny the points of failure in fiat either. I mean, and to say that we're not trying to look for another solution outside of fiat, I mean, that's just narrow-mindedness.
I think that the solutions in fiat, though, they don't have to deal with the money. Everyone's so focused on the money aspect of this. It's not the money. It's the regulation. It's the law. It's the policy. It's the human being at the top of the pile. Those are what makes the system fail. It's not the fiat currency. Because think of it this way. If fiat currency is the motivator for people to commit fraud and corruption, because it's something that you can amass lots of to be wealthy, how does owning lots of crypto assets, how is that any different? It still inspires you to make many more crypto assets. It still inspires you to amass a large amount of wealth. You just do it in a different way, right? You didn't solve the human problem. You didn't solve the policy and the regulation problem. You didn't solve the laws. You didn't solve the structure. You didn't solve the culture. You just changed the money.
But I'm also not worried. I'm also not worried about my government. What is it called? You hear the machines going brr. I'm not worried about the government making their own money and decreasing the value of this dollar or of this Bitcoin. As in, we have enough. So the first thing I always think about is like there's been proof that the CIA creates all their own money, right, to use in their own dark transactions, their ability to move and do everything that they do. Can they do that with Bitcoin? They could use Bitcoin potentially in a way, but they're not going to be making Bitcoin up, from a garage.
Wait. So when it comes with like the CIA and the government military operations, do we really want there to be a public ledger of CIA dark operations for the entire world to see? Because then our enemies could see it. They could know where we're spending money, what we're spending money on. We lose a
I feel like that's a whole other different rabbit hole, because to say that they're in the benefit of their people or their citizens is
okay. So you say that, but can you prove that it's a heavy detriment to the people?
I feel like any time I just think back at Germany. I mean, the fact that Germany before World War was it before World War II? Yeah, when their inflation, their dollar increased and their inflation just rose exponentially, and their dollar value just went down to nothing.
Right. Okay. But
that was their government's ability to control and regulate their ability to print money.
Right. Nobody was trading with it, and there was no production, so the government just kept printing money in the hopes they would keep its citizens happy, and that led to hyperinflation, and then
they're trying to pay their debt to other countries using
they're trying to
worthless money, and
they were stripped bare. So, but then what happened? They were able to solve that problem, right? The central banks came together, right? The funds all pulled together, all the banks pulled together, and then used fiat currency to solve the problem and make a war machine that almost conquered the world. So to say that there isn't a solution that can be done with fiat currency isn't the problem. It's the mentality, the policy, and the people. Because clearly that huge hole of fiat was solved with fiat. So the argument there is, well, it's possible. Why cryptocurrency wasn't needed then to solve the problem? Why would we need it now?
That was a whole jumble of, you pay them, they pay us, the U.S., and then we pay them back to. That's a whole movement of money that was the way Germany got out of it. That's a whole other different game. I mean,
right, but if you have,
it wasn't a detriment to fiat. It was a detriment to Germany. I'm saying our country's ability to do it does not take us out of the running of us potentially, digging our own hole the same way that Germany did.
No, I mean, I agree that's the problem. I agree that the fiat currency runs us these problems of heavy inflation, and we run the same risks. What I'm saying specifically when it comes to crypto is, right now it seems that crypto is not affected by inflation, but that can't be true for a currency because inflation is real no matter what. That's why the Fed manages inflation at a target of 2 to 2.5%. Inflation is a natural part of the financial system. Too much inflation is a bad thing, but normal inflation is like the cost of living adjustments. It's the normal wear and tear, the growth over time of other countries and industries and supply chains, the slow gradual incline of prices. If we never change the prices ever in the world, it wouldn't make any sense. We have all this extra production, more people to feed, more businesses opening up, more policy. So we need to keep putting more money. We need to take the thing off the dollar cent. If we never did, we wouldn't have had this amazing society. I argue if we had all of our money pinned to the dollar value, we wouldn't even be in a world where cryptocurrency would be possible. So detaching fiat currency from any type of real marker has created the actual product, not only the production to be able to spend, buy, and fund these huge mining labs and all this research to build these things, but it also created the incentive for people to want to invest and want to take part of this market. Without the growth, without detaching fiat currency and allowing it to be free floating, we wouldn't have had cryptocurrencies. Do you think that's a reasonable thing to say? If we kept it on the gold standard and we didn't make any more, would we have actually had the amount of money to backstop the equal amount of production to build these great technology empires?
I think the gold standard has a huge part in backing up the dollar. We keep talking about what's backing up whatever.
It used to, and
right?
it doesn't
back up.
1970s, Nixon took us off.
Yeah, exactly. So like, there's a lot of choices that are being made that are.
But the difference was
that's not benefiting the dollar. That's not putting value back into the dollar.
No,
it's removing value.
Right, it creates the dollar to be free floating, but every currency is free floating. So is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is also free floating. There's nothing underpinning Bitcoin.
Its ability to take over another free floating.
No, because the difference is America can produce and owns that capital. That's the currency of our country. Uh-huh. What Bitcoin or Ethereum? What country owns that currency? How do they control? Think of it this way: COVID happens, right? We needed $6 trillion of fucking stimulus, regardless of whether you agree with that or not. We spent all that money. Could we have done the same thing if a free-floating cryptocurrency was existing instead of a government-controlled or backed currency? Could we have actually produced stimulus, or would we have just had to say, COVID's happening, I guess we'll just watch, hope that the markets work? Because then it takes away the ability to regulate anything, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can't regulate things, how does the system work? Our system only works on regulations. Our entire system works on the faith of the inhabitants in the system. But if there's no regulations, there's no guarantees, there's no security, there's no insurance, there's no centralized entities facilitating credit. Are we supposed to rely on the intelligence and fairness of humans? Because that is not a good bet.
That's what we're currently doing.
We have all these regulations. We allow people to exist, but we don't let the currency be free floating. We have all the SEC, we have central banks, we have the central governments, we have all these different policies. We have learned that free markets can't exist. They can't be allowed to exist and maintain stable economies. It doesn't work. If we want everyone to have a living standard that's fair and keep everybody in their lives continuing like normal, we can't have a free floating economy because then companies could just disappear. We wouldn't be able to deal with things. We constantly bail out or regulate the markets. We found that it's impossible because remember, you have to care about the people in the country too. If we just let everything go free market, you have problems like in Texas where, oh shit, I guess you might be paying a fortune for heat this month. Hope your family, hope you can afford it. That's the problem because there is this currency never had any backing. The United States, when it was backed on the gold standard, then became the underpinning. If you look at any of the exchange rates, you'll notice that it's all against the US dollar, the most common ones. Why? Because all the exchanges were pinned against the dollar back on the gold standard. When we took it off the gold standard, yes, obviously everything was free floating, but they kept it on the US dollar because it has been understood to be this standardized financial institution. The entirety of America as a whole, it's as an institution, it's very creditworthy. It's a good way to balance everything because everything else fluctuates more often. America is viewed as a much more stable entity. But what makes America view as a stable entity? It's GDP. its production, its citizens, its longevity, its expected growth. What provides the stability or the production or the value behind cryptocurrency? None of it. So yes, it's all free floating, but the US dollar represents GDP and productivity. It represents something that's real.
Mm-hmm.
Cryptocurrency does not. It derives its value from fiat currency, which is the only reason why I would say probably 60 to 70% of the market participants are even playing with cryptocurrency, because they have the ability to make US dollars or their country's, denominated currency. So I think the blockchain, I love the blockchain, I love smart contracts, but I don't think that fiat currency is going to die, because I think the day fiat currency dies is not this big awakening of technology. It's going to be a day of reckoning. That is not going to be as glorious as everybody thinks it will. Because remember, the entire global economy is backed in fiat currency. If fiat currency dies without the ability of other currency to fill all those gaps, pieces of it will collapse. And in a globalized economy, as fragile and balanced as ours is, when big chunks just start disappearing, it has reverberations. It's not isolated. Everybody feels it. Every country will. The financial crisis was America, right? Happened in the United States. The whole world felt it for decades, right? For 10, 15, 20 years after the fact. Well, obviously not 20 years, but 10, 15 years after the fact, roughly, right? So these impacts are not small. You have to make sure it's a complete solution before you change it. And not only that, forget about before it can be changed, before anyone allows it to be changed. Because remember, just because we want it doesn't mean, look at China. People wanted it in China, and the miners got kicked out, and they're coming to America. And China said, you're not allowed to do that anymore. The United States hasn't done that, and it would be hard to necessarily float that idea. But, why wouldn't they? If they felt it as a threat, why not?
Definitely something to look out.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I think we beat the horse on this
Beat
topic.
the shit out of it.
Yeah,
so
we did.
we should definitely. This will be a good video to throw up there. I'd love to talk about this more, and I'd love to talk about, if we want to get other people on here to talk about it too.
No, yeah, absolutely.
I want to hear. Like, I'm not saying that like I'll never believe in it, but I need to hear, like, I understand the financials, right? Like, me and Jared went to grad school for this, so we understand.
Yeah, you guys understand that side. I want someone who understands the other side, because
I need someone to explain it to me in a way that's going to be able to fill all those gaps and make me feel like that's actually possible. Because everything I see now, all the things I read and hear about, I hear everyone saying it's the future, decentralization, the market, it's going to pop, it's going to be worth so much money, but I don't see anybody laying out the blueprint for how it actually maintains or replaces our system and makes it better. I just hear everybody saying it's going to be worth a lot of money, we should all buy it. Buy it.
Yeah, that's possible. It's very possible.
So that's my question. I'm like, show me the information. Like, I didn't believe Jeremy about the repo thing, and then we spent 4 hours looking through the documents, and we found it. We found that information. I was like, shit, Jeremy, that's correct. We found the data, and I can see it with my own eyes. I can visualize and pick out all this information. But
see, I'm a problem solver. So, like, for me, like, the things that you're saying, I'm just like, I'm eating it up, because I'm just like, awesome. There's so much room to grow. And
I hope
like,
you can come up with some answers, man.
Oh, I have so many answers. Oh my goodness. It literally
is, because I would love for us to have a whole segment.
I have them. I've thought about it for the last, like, I have years and years of thought processing, and over the last, like, year or two has just all been solely on, like, what's the potential of this? How's it going to grow? what's it going to need? Because you're absolutely right. Everything's still in place for fiat, but also everything that you're saying can be solved. Like, there's solutions to everything that you're saying. I'm not sure about the financial side, but for the
that's the biggest part.
But
though,
for the,
like, talk about a currency.
But you're talking about utility power and all these other things that will keep it alive, and what's gonna kill fiat, what's gonna kill crypto, and that's all. That's Tim, that's schmuck stuff.
Yeah, fuck it. It ain't gonna matter. Don't worry. We're gonna figure it out.
I mean, those are
I need more than that.
Those are. I can't say it out loud because these are some of my, like, billion-dollar ideas. But the thought process of how we're going to progress into the future, unless we're going to be changing our energy consumption and our ability to attain energy, we're gonna die. We're not going to be sustainable. We're not going to be able to continue the same way of living that we currently are living. So yeah, absolutely. If you think about present day and everything that we're doing right now, you're absolutely right. If you're not trying to, transform the future, then you're still right. But there's going to be guys who are going to come up with solutions and make stupid amount of money, because you're absolutely right. These are issues to address, but they're also
right there,
big dollar
big
signs.
Stupid amounts of big dollar signs, right? U.S. dollar signs.
Yeah,
Fiat
U.S.
currency
dollar
signs.
Yeah.
Fiat currency will never die, and if it does, dark day. Because think of it this way: let me think about this. What if you went to the grocery store and you bought all your food, but you couldn't bring it home? There was a building in town and it stored your refrigerator, and you could go there and put your stuff in there and they hold it for you. And great, you own it, it's yours, it's got labels and everything, but you don't own your house. Wouldn't you prefer to own your food, like with you? Wouldn't you be able to hold it at some point to guarantee that it's there? Right? And then maybe not all the time, but you'd like to be able to know that you could. You'd maybe have a stash of food, right? Just in case, canned beans and some waters. But what if you could never physically own all that? You could never hold it in your hands. You'd have to rely on something else to maintain that for you, right? Being able to hold dollars in your hand, cents in your hand, is like, I don't need an internet. I can literally be in the middle of a desert and bump into some caravan trader. And if I have enough of the currency in that area, I can buy food.
See, I still think that you're shorting yourself on the capability of advancing in these technologies. As in, who's to say you can't put a digital Bitcoin into a physical Bitcoin item that's then tradable, like literally as a coin?
How would that work? Because I guess you would have it. Because how would that be? NFTs are not physical objects; they're all digital.
And that's where you're wrong. You can have a physical and digital.
So you can have the physical object, but
both
the NFT
represent the same. They're both one. One is connected to the other.
Right, but the NFT, the actual ownership portion, is separate than the object. Like for instance, you own a pair of socks and you have an NFT on that sock that shows you own that. I can take the socks from you. You own the NFT, but I own the socks. So what
then
good
what
is
if
the
the
NFT?
socks is also a cold wallet? That's completely reasonable. What if there's, a USB inside the sock that constantly has said, Bitcoin in it? That's now a physical asset that's holding a digital asset.
That would be unwise. Why would you?
It's not
you store them in everyday
unreasonable.
objects. Yeah, you pair to a pair of socks.
You could just move that into a painting. You have digital art,
but
and
that's
that
what,
digital
this way,
art is then represented into a physical painting, and you're capable of attaching your data of said, NFT into the physical object.
Okay, so you're talking about putting circuitry into physical things to say the NFT is a part of it. That seems like an extra. That seems like an unnecessary extra step to say, because if you own the painting, you hold it. Like, I own this painting, and you have the papers already. People have the papers that say this is my painting. This is the documentation. This is who owns it. This is legit. This is all that stuff.
And if all that was a digital document,
then I would find it easier. I mean, it would be no different than me owning the physical asset. I could just take it. You would have the digital asset would be separately. It'd be still be separate though.
But what if it's one and the same?
But that's what I'm saying. How does it become one and the same? If you have digital data and a physical asset, how do they literally become one and the same? If they literally
do I have a USB around here? I can literally stick a USB in my mouth, and I have now data in my body.
No.
It doesn't mean that I can extract it and use it in my body, but I can now stick my tongue out and pull out
the NFT though. The NFT is not the USB.
Identify what's inside of it.
The NFT is not the USB though. The NFT is the digital data stored on the USB, right?
Yeah,
so you didn't just. It's not intrinsically.
Let me do more data in NFTs, and I feel like, how much data have you done? How much research have you done in NFTs?
Not a tremendous amount,
because it doesn't sound like you have. Because right now, the restrictedness of data to physical elements, it's not so far fetched. It's not as
okay. So
impossible.
explain it to me how you intertwine these two things specifically, not just like you tape a USB to something. That's not intertwining
No,
digital and
I'm
reality.
just it's just data. It's how you store data.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is the data and the physical real world object are two separate things.
Yes.
How do you intertwine them? Like you can mark them and say these two things are equivalent, but that doesn't mean that they're actually the same thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. And I feel like it's an extra additional layer. Like we're trying to create a way of putting ownership on every little individual thing that we own, but that ownership is still digital. It's still a digital
just
asset.
type in NFT and physical asset, and you start getting a bunch of stuff.
Okay, let me see. NFT. Non-fungible tokens or NFTs are unique assets created by the Ethereum network. They allow creators to create fully. Let's see. Physical NFT. What is it? Physical NFTs by Flip are NFTs linked to physical works of art. They can be resold like any other NFT or redeemed for delivery of the physical work. Yes, but it's as long as you have. They're not the same thing though. It's like a contract. It's like a piece of information.
It's
that
an
says
identifier.
you own this.
It's an identifier.
Right, but it's not the same
in both
thing.
directions.
If you have a dog, and that dog is of a specific breed, purebred, you get the paperwork for that dog that says that's a purebred dog. That's your dog. It's purebred. All these things are true. But those two things are not physically the same. You can say, when I sell this dog, I will also sell you the paperwork. You get it all. It's all part of the package. But in terms of everyday items, they're not the same. I can take the dog or take the paperwork separately. There's no reason, there's no force compelling me to have them both. Right? There's nothing forcing me to. If I own an NFT of something, you're right. You can borrow it and I can lease it out to you. And then I don't have to worry about ownership because I have the NFT that says that thing's mine. Maybe it has a barcode on it. Sure. But they're still not the same.
Oh my goodness.
thing.
You have no idea how they're utilizing that exact concept in order to make money off of these things, because you then put a signature, like who's owned this? Like who's had this? Like,
but that's no different
you
than
can
Rolex
rent it
giving you
out,
a
you can-
unique. That's no different than Rolex putting like a serial number on the back of their watch and giving you the paperwork that says this is yours. But the ownership of it, like they're still separate things. You get it all together. It is still unique identifier. But if I took that watch without taking the paperwork, does the watch is it no longer useful? Is the value of that watch by itself technically disappeared? Is the Rolex worth less money because I don't have the NFT with it, but I still have the physical watch, and it doesn't need the NFT to exist. The NFT is extra. It's like I find it interesting because we're creating markets out of nothing, right? We're like creating an additional layer of money making on top of a physical asset that already exists. But in order for that NFT to be valuable, there must be a physical, at least these types of NFTs, right? Because there's two major types. For these types to be valuable, it needs a physical asset to exist. Otherwise, the NFT doesn't have ownership. If you don't have a physical asset, what does the NFT own? What does it point to ownership of?
To the digital data of whatever the NFT is created of. Like the fact that NFTs don't need a physical item in order to be valuable.
But there's two types, right? There's the NFTs that are themselves its own object, right? Its own ownership or its own thing, and then there's the NFT that is an ownership contract of a physical asset, right? There's two separate types. So what I'm talking about is, yes, if you're talking about the NFT that's just the physical asset, 100%, it is itself the value. I agree with that. But if we're talking about NFTs that are like ownership contracts that are digital data that show ownership of this object, that's a different story. Those are two different things.
They have that.
Yes, it shows
they both are one and the same. What you just said are one and the same of how NFTs work.
Okay, so if I have a painting of Mona Lisa and there's an NFT, they're one and the same. If I hang up the Mona Lisa in my house and the NFT is a digital signature,
and it's
they can't do that. They can't do the same thing though, can they?
What's the same thing?
I can't look at the Mona Lisa hanging on my wall in the NFT, but I can look at the physical Mona Lisa hanging on my wall. How do you, as the digital asset, how do you literally hang that up on your wall and look at it?
Where are we all moving towards? A metaverse? Where are all these NFTs being used? Like there's actual like I'm a little confused. I feel like I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, because like that's exactly what NFTs are already. Like your argument against NFTs are what NFTs are.
Right. But the NFT, the non-fungible token, is either the object itself or the ownership, right? The literal like receipt of that you own this thing. You can have an NFT that's buying the official like copy of Nyan Cat. Well, you own that NFT. You own. There's only one of them in the world, or you can have multiple of them, and you can all buy them like they're a series of like you have one out of 100. But then there's the NFTs that give digital ownership to products that then say, okay, I own the Mona Lisa. I own the NFT. So I can lend the Mona Lisa out to you. You can go and use it, and I can make money off it, but I still have the NFT that I actually own it. So I still reside ownership over that Mona Lisa painting. The NFT is the receipt or contract of ownership in that specific case when it talks about physical assets. If you're talking about a metaverse of just digital assets, yes, they're two different types of NFTs, right? Two main types. That NFT that is only digital asset, yeah, you can look at that in the metaverse. You own it. That's yours. It shows up in augmented reality in your house. But there's a difference because the other type is saying it's not the same thing as a real physical copy of the Mona Lisa, because it literally is not the same thing. Not that it stands for the same thing. It literally is not the same thing. A digital copy of the Mona Lisa hanging up in the metaverse that you own, and the physical Mona Lisa that's hanging up on the wall of the house that you paid for, right? Those are two separate things by literal definition, right? Yeah. They're literally different things. Yeah. But that NFT gives you ownership of that thing in the real world, and it has a representation in the metaverse. But they're not literally the same thing, because the NFT I can't touch. I can't literally grab it with my hand. But the Mona Lisa painting, I can literally move and throw or carry. I can physically hold it and feel the weight and the mass. But the NFT, you can't. It can be a perfect representation in the metaverse, but the metaverse is not reality. It is augmented reality. It is a layer of data that sits on top of what's already here. So you can own an NFT of the Mona Lisa, and the NFT can point to your ownership of that thing, but they are quite literally not the same thing. They may point to each other like two pointers in C++ and say, I point to this and this thing points back to me, and we are technically linked, but they're not the same thing.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't feel like that's any type of like
for instance, I could sell that Mona Lisa without selling the NFT. It's not an
argument. Like that's just like, yeah, one's physical, one's digital. Like,
but you're saying
you're on my screen. You're not physically here.
Right,
that
but you're saying
not make you.
So looking at me over this Zoom, so our meeting like this versus us sitting in the same room is not the same thing. It represents the same thing. It's technically both us talking, but there is a very different experience. They're two very different things, right?
I mean, yes and no. At the very rudimentary base of just abstracting this as a, what it is and what it's not compared to, physical and digital objects, it's the ability to combine the two that makes it unique. That
right, I'm not saying that's not
one that a digital receipt even points to,
right.
a physical object.
But when I'm saying that is unique, but it doesn't make them one and the same. It is a unique identifier. They do point to each other. The NFT points to the object or the identifying UUID.
But they do.
They don't do the same thing either.
Well,
because remember, if I have exactly, but that's what I'm saying. They're two different things.
Both of these items, respectfully, have the exact same denominator, and it's that somebody is putting value to them. The painting is just literally paper and paint, right? The digital asset, the NFT, is just code. It takes the individual person. It takes whoever wants to purchase it for whatever amount. That's what puts the value behind it.
Right, and I agree with you.
Then,
that's how that market works.
Let's say you combine the two, right? And someone purchases both of them for $50 million. Well, they just made an NFT worth $50 million.
Right, but that's no different than regular artwork. What I'm saying is, yeah, but the NFT is worth the $50 million because it has the asset. But what if you own the NFT, but then someone burned the Mona Lisa?
Well, now the NFT is worth a fuck ton. Like a megaton. That's what I'm saying.
No. Okay, it's okay. That's if there's a market willing to pay for it. But you're assuming that people
were willing to pay for it.
Okay, but they're still not the same thing, though.
But
right?
But you just said if one burnt up, you were trying to make the point that the other would be useless.
it is technically useless.
Technically, but the
it is
value that one is
right,
missing
but that
actually
doesn't change the fact that it's not
exponentially
useless.
increases the value of the other.
Right, but that doesn't mean it's more useful. It means it's more valuable in the eyes of an investor. But
Yeah.
physical usefulness is not there. So you're spending money on the ownership of a thing that does not exist.
I mean, that's the same as people who purchase paintings, but then they leave them in museums.
No, but they own that painting.
Yeah, but it's in a museum.
If I bought a
You can't touch it.
Yeah, no, I gave it to the museum. I own it, and I'm letting the museum rent it.
Yeah, but
I'm making
it's
money on it.
not in your possession.
But
It's not in your house.
Right, but I have ownership.
That's
over
the same
it.
as an NFT.
There's a contractual agreement. I agree that NFTs are an interesting way to give that ownership, but they're still not the same thing. The ownership of an object and an object are not the same thing, and they, in theory, technically should not be worth the same thing. I agree that there are NFT markets where people are more willing to pay for the ownership of a thing rather than the thing, which I personally think is absolutely an insane waste of capital. But to each their own. It's a free market. But that doesn't mean that they represent the same thing. Just because people are willing to pay the same amount of money for two different things and they point to each other does not make them the same thing.
I think that's where, by definition, what non-fungible means.
Right. No, non-fungible means that it's it's a unique version.
Yeah.
Isn't non-fungible?
So it doesn't equally.
But the NFT of the Mona Lisa
something else
and but the NFT of the Mona Lisa and the Mona Lisa are different things. You can't do the same thing with them, right? They're not interchangeable, right? The Mona Lisa painting cannot be converted into digital data, and the digital data cannot be converted into a physical version of the Mona Lisa. They are independent objects linked to a common denominator, but are independent, non-interchangeable. What I don't understand about the NFT is we have created a market based on ownership of things. So we're now monetizing the actual ownership. My question is that, yes, that is valuable for some things, but we already do this every day. You can rent out your car or your home like an Airbnb. You sign contracts, you become a little business owner, you can rent it out. I don't need to have the NFT of my home to rent out my home and still own it as my own. I have contracts, I have mortgages, I have paperwork.
I guess the difference is your ability to prove it.
I have paperwork.
Yeah, your paperwork shit because you just have one stack of paperwork versus a whole network who's able to validate and say.
I agree that the NFT can exist in that way, assuming the network has not been breached, assuming the network is secure, assuming the network is still there to begin with, right? Assuming the servers are still standing.
Assuming they're using blockchain and minting all their data.
Right,
but a minted block cannot be changed.
But what I'm saying is the literal value of the NFT of an object and the object itself. Okay? They shouldn't be the same.
They shouldn't.
They may be the same,
yeah,
but they shouldn't be because they're not interchangeable. And that's my whole argument for NFTs. If you own an NFT, you're owning a digital rights to something. You're owning the same thing you would with paperwork, except it's on a ledger that's on the blockchain somewhere. That's the only difference. You're digitizing ownership and paying for the right to have digital ownership. But it doesn't change the fact that they're not the same thing. Owning the NFT and owning the object are technically different things because I can literally take the painting and throw it off a bridge, but the NFT will still exist, and they'll exist independently. They point to each other, but they exist independently. So
isn't that awesome? That's
cool.
Okay,
It might be cool, but this is the problem. It's not cool. It's because it costs a fucking fortune. When you think about artwork, that's fine. If the elites want to play and invest in art, it's just a market for whatever somebody else is willing to pay for it. But if you did that to all everyday objects, you go to Hanes and buy a pack of underwear, and that comes with an NFT. Why the hell would anybody want the NFT for that? Because think of it this way: you're not just paying for the product; you're now paying an additional cost for the NFT that's being logged and shows that I own this thing. Everything I buy is on a ledger. I don't want everything I buy to be on a ledger. Everything you purchase goes on a ledger somewhere. Everything is an NFT. And what happens when I throw that pair of underwear away? Is there just an ever-growing pile of NFTs of ownership of things that don't exist? Like Facebook has an ever-growing pile of accounts of people who are dead?
Pretty much.
What happens to the NFTs? And so that's what I'm saying, though. But then you have a marketplace of NFTs that point to ownership of, like, Gary's 15th pair of socks. And if people are willing to pay for it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's the point, is that people are willing to pay for it.
Right, but they're not the same thing. And they don't mean the same thing. They don't do the same thing. So when you buy the NFT, you have to be recognizing that it's a separate thing. You may buy them together, but it is inherently a separate thing from the physical asset. You can buy them and sell them together all day long, but that doesn't mean they do the same thing. Just because there's a market that's willing to price this thing at the same or more than this thing doesn't mean they're the same thing. That's why we can look at. That's why you can have arbitrage and buy a stock or an exchange rate in one market, then go to another market, and the price in that market seems to be $2 higher. So I can buy low in this market and sell high in that market. They're the same exact thing, valued very differently, right? In two different markets. They're technically the same things. It's the same asset, but there's two different worlds that it's being valued in. The NFT can be worth a lot of money, and the object can be worth a lot of money. And in this case, they're not the same. They're not the same thing. So you could have two independent markets for two independent things that share a common thread between each other, but you're paying for two separate things. You're paying for two entirely separate things. With the NFT as a receipt of ownership.
That's where I feel like that might be a limiting thought, as in it doesn't necessarily have to be separate.
Well, what I'm saying is, how do you make the physical asset and the NFT the same when the NFT is by definition a digital accounting of ownership of a digital asset or a physical asset? If it's a digital asset, I agree with you, because there's two types. We're talking about one. If you talk about that one, I 100% agree. You can buy the NFT itself and you'll own the digital asset. It's yours. It is itself a product. But when you're talking about the other ones, they're two separate things. They come together, they point to ownership, and I think it's a great idea in terms of being able to rent things out, but I don't see it as being any different. I find it as a weird way to create markets to spend money on things that we already inherently own.
What's going on right now.
But doesn't that seem a bit fraudulent? Imagine this. I own my house. I own a house, right? I have ownership of that house. Then you have the NFT, but I have to pay additional money for the NFT, right? The NFT is separate in terms of its value.
Why?
I don't get an NFT when I buy the house, right? Or do I get the NFT with the house?
You get the NFT with the house.
So then, but they can be priced separately.
Why?
So someone else can have ownership of the thing that I own.
Where are you getting these separate prices from?
From the fact that you told me that if the asset itself is destroyed, the NFT may be worth even more money, which means there's two separate markets, which in theory means there can be two separate prices, right? The NFT and the physical asset can be worth different values, depending on if you value buying the physical asset more or less than buying the ownership of that physical asset. You create two markets for the same thing, even though there's only one physical asset. You create an entirely overlying market of ownership that has no actual affiliation. Just because you have the NFT doesn't mean you own the physical asset. You have maybe legal rights to, but that doesn't necessarily mean you actually own it. You don't. It's not like you buy an NFT and all of a sudden things get mailed.
That's obviously good enough for people to put their money into it.
Right, and that's fine for that market, but intrinsically the value is not there. You're not paying for the object. You're
obviously,
paying for the
if you burn a house
object.
down, that NFT isn't going to increase in value.
You told me that when I lost the pair of socks, but you told me before when the pair of socks was destroyed.
Aren't art.
Well, I guess there could be a very loose interpretation of what art is. I saw an apple from.
That's why if you buy underwear,
$1 million.
If you buy underwear with an NFT, that's like a sticker coming with your underwear. No one cares. Right. It just came with it. Nobody asked for an NFT with your underwear. But
right. So NFTs in this case are only mostly useful in art, right? But they can extend to ownership of everyday objects, right?
Potentially,
if it starts with art, so why can't it be owned for a skateboard or a car or a TV or a specific couch? Maybe that specific couch, you only want one of a kind, so you have ownership over that specific couch. Having the NFT and having the couch are not the same thing. Even if they're priced the same, even if there's a market for each that act independently, they're still not the same thing. Because even though you have legal ownership, if you never have the couch, you just own the ownership. And if that couch doesn't provide you revenue, because remember, there are other ways to use the NFTs. Some have theorized that and in practice, that you use NFTs to own portions or pieces of bridges and highways and businesses. So you actually create NFTs that give you partial dividend ownership as a way to make money as an investor in the NFT ownership, which I do think is interesting. The only problem is when you get to assets that don't give you revenue. You just buy ownership separate from literally owning the assets. You have two levels of ownership, and then they could be priced independently. So you have a disconnect between the couch being worth $100, but the ownership of that couch could be worth $1,000. That doesn't actually make any sense because they're different things. The person paying $1,000 for the NFT doesn't actually get the physical asset. necessarily. They just have the ownership. Now, there can be legalities where they can claim it, and if you sell the NFT, they have the rights to the couch. But until they actually have the physical asset, it's not theirs.
Well, and
They have to go and get it.
I mean, I feel like the obvious thing is that, yeah, any destruction of a physical object, if connected to the NFT, would lose its value to the NFT. But that's why those are also like how you value that asset. As in, art is in itself different than
Art is
than an
completely
everyday,
what people
like,
want to pay for it.
yeah. And so like people are on, Sotheby's, and they're paying, millions and millions of dollars for these NFTs. And so there's no physical item behind it. But if there was, it's still art. They're more interested in maybe the digital art because it's less able to be destroyed. I don't know. There's different ways to go about it, but to me it just sounds like just different avenues of making money, and that's exactly what's going on. Is that people are purchasing these NFTs at a low price, and for some reason the demand is so high that it times
Because
10.
everybody wants to be in this market. Everybody wants
times
to get in
10,
and
and then
excited.
you then did make revenue. Like you
But
did make
again,
profit.
but that's another question of like, where's the actual production there? Like, if you own a digital asset in the metaverse, what if you can't connect to your metaverse?
Well, you messed up. Like,
But that money's gone. Like, you spend all that money, and some people argue, well, what if parts of the blockchain go down? What if parts of the servers that store information go down? Right? What happens then?
that's not how it works.
Well, the entire block. What I'm saying is there can be giant chunks of the network that are out at a time, right? Because
That's
the blockchain
fine.
will
And that's
work.
why they're progressing into trying to find a way in order to create non-screwable, computer chains.
I just my biggest concern is that we're so intent on digitizing all of this value, but we don't yet have the actual security of the ability to keep it all online. Because you own all those digital assets, that's great. But if you can't gain access to them, or you don't have any power in your house, there's no metaverse. They don't exist. They literally do not exist.
Is the power in the house or loss of power, is that your strongest argument? So if that gets solved, then like we're all good and dandy.
I think one of the major components to this, and it has been for months, and it's been covered across all the news stations, and everyone's been talking about this, is how do we actually, because right now we're seeing huge strains on power supplies just with the mining we already have. What about an entire system that's running all over the world? We're ready for it, but we're still pushing towards it.
Mhm.
Don't you think that we might push too far too fast, and then that would cause an adverse reaction, because then you would have huge blackouts, damage, and destruction, people not liking the blockchain, politicians asking to regulate it, right?
So I mean, over the last 10 years, there's been so much mined already, right?
Right, but there's still so much more to go.
But not as much as there is already currently in supply.
So would you say that there's more currently in supply than is left to mine?
And they also do they do halvings. What's it called? Halvings?
Halvings?
They half the coins. They do
Okay, that seems like mad sketchy. Like, okay, so now not only can you mine the coins, but now you can halve the coins, so you can make more of it from what's already there. Is that what you're saying? So wait, how does that stop us from taking fiat? If you took if $1 for $1 worth of gold was the gold standard, and then all of a sudden you take Bitcoin to start halving them to make more of them, don't you run into the same problem?
2024 will be the next time they do the halving.
See that? What do we mean by halving? So each Bitcoin's only worth half a Bitcoin after that, like a stock split?
They've done this before. This isn't the first time. This is probably gonna be like third or fourth time.
When I'm asking because I'm asking, I'm curious. So do you mean that you're splitting it like a stock split? So you're keeping the same amount of value in the network, just you're literally changing what each coin is worth. So like if Bitcoin was 30K, when they do that, each Bitcoin will now be worth 15K, because you're dumping. Now you're saying
And
there's
then
twice
it's
as many
double the
Bitcoin.
supply. Yeah.
So wait a minute, wait. But how is that different than printing more money and increasing the money supply?
So this is the part where it comes to like the financial economics of, I guess, keeping it healthy, stable. This is where it starts going over my head. Like I don't have a full understanding of halving, but
But that's what it sounds like to me. Like they're making Bitcoin,
yeah,
out of nothing, which
Pretty
is what we
much.
do with the fiat currency. We print
Which is the
money
same thing
out
that
of
companies do with their stocks.
No, but they yes, you can make stocks out of nothing and then you can sell them on the market. I 100% agree with that. But that's what I'm saying. But we're not talking about stocks
But
and an
that's how
asset. We're
they're
talking about a currency,
that's how they're using.
potential for currency.
Well,
You're saying this will replace a currency, but
so
then
how about
can
you take
also
it away
make
from
more of it.
currency and just call it a token or call it a stock or call it
No,
like
well, I wouldn't call it a stock. I would call it just I would just call
But-
it an asset.
respect.
And that's what I call them, crypto assets.
Respectively, it is its own type of stock market. Not
No,
Bitcoin.
no,
I'm talking about like
no,
the
it's a market.
cryptocurrency.
No,
it's a market.
it's a market, not a stock market.
Not a stock
It's
market,
an equity
obviously.
market
I'm
because you don't
trying to
own
make a
equity in
reference.
anything. Wait, but when you say
But
stock market,
right now,
you're
people-
applying equity markets.
Yeah, there is.
So it's a market, just like there's any market. You can go outside, and if your neighbor has oranges and you have apples and you want to trade, you just made a market. Tiny little market, but you made a market. So it's a market for an asset. 100%. NFTs, markets for assets. 100% no debate. It's a valid market. People make money, people buy and sell. 100%. My question is always in where the actual value is, because when we start moving money, when we trade, because you're not investing, you're speculating. You're gambling. It's a market of trading assets because you expect someone to either pay more or less for it. You're not investing in value. You're not investing in a company, because when a company issues stock and you invest, the way investing is supposed to work is give you money for stock. You take that money, build stuff, make production. Therefore, you increase the value of the company. By doing so, you increase the amount of free cash flow you have on your books, which gives me more equity in your business. Therefore, my shares have now become worth more money because you grew as a result of pooling the investment of the investors. That's the core premise of an investment.
That's exactly
this
what's
is just
going on.
no, because you're not
in
investing
Bitcoin,
in where.
not in Bitcoin, in every other freaking cryptocurrency that has like real world applications. Like I'm not invested into Bitcoin because of the fact that like yeah, there is nothing attainable. Like I can't look at a company, I can't look at their white sheet. Like I can't find out like oh hey, you know what? Like
Well, then how
this
do you know how much
company's
it's
going to
worth?
be. Well, that's not my problem. My problem
But
is in the
how do you
companies
value?
in the companies that are making real world applications, in the ones that are
So you can invest in those companies. Oh no. If you find a company that's developing blockchain technology, then you can do that because they can estimate revenue. You can look at other companies in the supply chain, and you have a means to calculate what you think the future revenue. 100%. That's an investment. If you believe in the future of blockchain,
everything I'm
and-
fucking doing.
but
I
in the
have no
crypto- But I'm
idea
talking
what
about
the
the
fuck you're
crypto
talking
market
about.
by itself.
Bitcoin.
In the crypto market itself. Because if you're investing in the blockchain technology from the company side, that's fine. But if you're investing in Bitcoin, like you buy Bitcoin,
No, I'm not.
that's not investment.
No,
That's just
see,
speculative
you're
trading.
stuck on just Bitcoin. I've been talking about cryptocurrencies in a whole forever.
But no, but cryptocurrencies as a whole and blockchain are separate. Cryptocurrency is an application. Blockchain is separate from cryptocurrency. So if you talk about, and I agree with you, blockchain is great. The only way to invest in blockchain is, but I'm talking about cryptocurrencies because that's where most of the money is being spent right now. NFT is where most of the money is being spent. Not the companies developing usages for the blockchain technology, which is separate than the NFTs and crypto. Because crypto and NFTs are just a way that the blockchain is used. I'm talking about cryptocurrencies and NFTs. I already believe in the blockchain is the future. I believe that there's going to be a use for it, and I believe that you can invest if you invest in the companies. But if you're investing in the future of blockchain because you want, by doing so by buying cryptocurrencies or buying NFTs because you believe in the longevity of those objects and the value of that in the future, that's not investment.
Works. No.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. I'm
Bro,
saying I disagree
We've been
with
on the
heavy
same
amounts of
page
investment.
forever.
Well, I don't know if we were on the same page. Because I still have my questions about the digital. All those things I said in the beginning about digital currency was definitely lots of concerns for that.
I might have to just pop up a lot more articles because I'm very.
Please, I want to have this conversation with you. You're probably the most knowledgeable person on cryptocurrency that I know. And
because a lot
so
of
I
these,
enjoy talking to you.
A lot of these things are like. I love hearing your perspective because this is like the future. Like for Bitcoin, I don't see surviving the future. I can't really support or say how long Bitcoin's gonna last. I don't see it lasting. I see Ethereum overtaking Bitcoin. That's my honest opinion.
Okay.
And so like from there, yeah, like how they progress with it, I do think they see the deficiencies in Bitcoin. And I do believe that's why all these other blockchain technologies, cryptocurrencies are coming out, because they do see the opportunity to overtake the market. Aside from cryptocurrencies, a lot of it they're using and they're building all their blockchains and cryptocurrencies based off of the use of their protocol. And so to use their protocol, you have to purchase their cryptocurrency. And yes, you use fiat, and I completely agree. I don't see fiat going away anytime soon. I don't see it, Bitcoin replacing fiat by any means. But I do see the way maybe money moves and how we see interactions and transactions, maybe that might change, because just I don't know. There's still so much coming out of it that it's still brand new. This is such a new technology. That's what makes it so exciting, and that's why, like, where it is gonna fall short, I see money bills there. Like, I see bags of money there, because whoever solves those issues, like right. Bro, you're talking facts, and that's where the money's gonna come. Like, someone's gonna solve that and be like.
And when I hear the solutions, I'll be the first one to say, all right, that problem solved. Moving on to the next one. But I'm very much a realist, so things have to make sense to me. Things have to logically make sense.
And so to start off, Bitcoin did not make sense, and up until 4 years ago, they thought it was gonna die. Every single time there's been a pump, everybody's thought it was gonna die. Why it revived, 3 years ago? I want to say, finally the use of real world applications are coming about. This year's been a very strong year for that. And right. that's
California's got 2,800 businesses that take Bitcoin.
Yeah. And so that's where my, not security, but, my risk tolerance comes in, because it's not just imaginary numbers now. Now it's, companies creating and companies using, companies trying to find and create a sustainable cryptocurrency.
I mean, I think that a lot of these companies just take it as a form of payment and then convert back to fiat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway. But the fact that they're able to do that is unreal, unprecedented.
Right. I know. I agree. Again, I agree with the technology, but when I think about it, it's like an unnecessary step. You're still paying the same amount of money for something. You're just buying Bitcoin and then buying a thing with Bitcoin, and then they're taking the Bitcoin and turning it back into US dollars.
I also see. This might be a topic for another time, but like the progression of moving away from third party, the need for a third party transaction, how much money would be saved in the long run? Like, how would that change up the system? Like, we're so used to third party transactions.
You mean like PayPal?
Oh yeah, PayPal,
Square and stuff.
All those. Yeah. And so like blockchain solves that. There's no need to use them. That's part of the application. And Lightning Network is a very good.
Well, we replaced those. You replace PayPal with Coinbase, or a different type of wallet software where you store your Bitcoin.
That's where, like, Cardano. That's why that one's looking so strong. Lightning Network is using Bitcoin 2.0, and they had to establish their own type of proof of stake in order to figure out how are we gonna implement and keep track of all these transactions. And I really love the Lightning Network. Actually, I think that's going to be probably one of the next projects we just mess with. Just create some Lightning Networks. I told Jeremy about this like a couple months ago, and then we went right into like Cardano staking pools, which
right.
It's still a beautiful concept long term, but short term it's definitely going to be one of those you take the hits until you grow. Lightning Network, I mean, your ability to create your own, I see it as like your own ATMs. You're creating transactions. You're allowing transactions. You're creating the pathway for more transactions to go and speed up the network. I mean, there's a lot of interesting applications that are going around, and how it's going to progress. I definitely see them overtaking a lot of companies just because the technology it's written in stone. It's a smart contract. They can't change it. And once it's there, there's no manipulating the code. It's scratch it, redo it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But then I agree there'll be people that want to centralize that.
Oh yeah,
because I want to be
people
the person
are going to be
routes
selfish.
The most smart networks.
Yeah,
and but then of course 30, 40 years down the line of that development, you get back to the same point where now you have quote unquote crypto banks
and
that are just
that's
as big and
where
powerful as banks.
and that's why there is the encouragement of more people jumping on and creating their own network, creating their own nodes, having their own, miners, just regulating it themselves and not having these big institutions do it. The fact that you have the power to download the whole Bitcoin network into your living room and regulate your own wallet, that's huge. You can't do that with our banks. That's a new game we're playing now.
Right, and I agree with that. That's definitely a usage case that's separate and advantageous. But remember that banks serve many functions, most of which don't have anything to do with retail and individuals. Right, most of them have nothing to do with managing my finances, right, or your finances. They have to do with the global economy. They have to do with the country's national economy. And that's where the issue comes, because when you decentralize that, you can say, okay, we'll get everybody to pool these things together. And you're right, someone may come up with a solution to this, but the difficulty with coming up with a solution to that is testing it and making sure that it's stable and that it works in the long term. Because the other question is, well, what stops the big banks from seeing this and then doing it themselves?
Nothing. But that's also, it's the other way around too. Like, if a bank does it, what stops the normal person from doing it too?
Capital.
So,
because remember, let's say the bank and JP Morgan can buy shit tons of Bitcoin. It can become a Bitcoin broker. It can become a facilitator of crypto asset liquidity and crypto asset credit. Then all that happens is now you have banks that have the fiat and have massive amounts of the crypto once they get the regulation to be able to do something.
Which looks like that's where it's progressing.
Which I think that would be a stable way of doing it, but then that would take away the decentralization of finance, because you'd still be centralizing it to these institutions. Yes, the ledger is decentralized. Yes, you can see all the transactions. Yes, you can manage all that, but you still rely on big institutions and regulations to manage the network within the country, which is.
I feel like I'm okay with that. Like, I honestly, I don't know that much about money regulations, making these rules. I don't know what the hell SEC are doing, OCC, WEC. I'm making stuff up now. Like, there's enough people making rules that, this stuff's over my head, and they're obviously doing it for some reason.
The idea is
to stop it or to say that we don't need it. That's hard to say. I don't have that information to say that we don't need banks. Like, I can't say that. All I say about banks is what I read about, that doesn't sound fair. Hey, that doesn't necessarily sound like it benefits me. Or, do I in a perfect world, is this something that I want my money to be doing?
Right. No, I mean,
and those are just the small facts.
I understand the driving impetus behind decentralized finance. Like, I get why people want to move away from the systems that we currently have. I just wonder if people are doing it because they have an image in their head that isn't actually real, because I worry that cryptocurrencies won't actually solve a lot of the problems. It'll just make it more complicated. And then when you think about it, if banks gain access to this and can use it like they normally do, you'll have big institutions with lots of capital, lots of insurance, and an immense amount of knowledge, because they can afford to pay for that knowledge. So then you'd have a currency now that, because when you have dollars and cents, it's pretty easy to understand. They put a couple dollar bills on the table, a couple of pennies and dimes. I count that up. That's how much money there is. But when you talk about crypto assets, you're talking about people using it from every age range. You're talking about from young to old, every usage, every possible transaction at some point. You create a much higher level of complexity and a learning curve to that. So one that I think the big businesses will easily be able to be sitting at the top and constantly be ahead while you're always trying to catch up. And then when you have big businesses like that start taking crack at this, they can maybe start building their own systems or designing their own applications for these, which make it even more complex. Which is why I think,
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely. It's not far-fetched at all. I mean, whoever has money is going to go after more money.
Right. So I'm curious to see, how we solve the human problem, because I'm of a great belief that most of our systems are broken because of human beings, and as long as human beings play the essential, roles, will always run the risk of having it repeat itself over and over and over again.
And that's where
regardless.
my hope is that smart contracts start filling in the gap for that human error, for that human element. That we just put this into code and it does a step 1, step 2, step 3, job complete. You know, we're not worried that step 1 is going to be manipulated, step 2 is going to be taken advantage of, or step 3 is going to be manipulated.
Right.
It's a smart contract. Hopefully it just progresses through.
Yeah,
And so
I like that idea. I like the ideas of smart contracts and algorithms that, you know, handle specific tasks.
which I feel like we need to do a little bit more of on the side. Hint, hint.
Right. Well, one of Sarah's
I would
friends is working on
dive-
smart contract technology.
I would dive head on into smart contracts right now. I just need a second body that also has my brain. That would be great. I want multiple me. I really do.
All right, so you want to make smart contracts? Hop into this clone machine, and we'll just make a copy of you so you can work twice as fast, back to back. Yeah.
Totally ethical. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Don't worry about that.
That guy
Playing
doesn't
God,
need to eat or sleep. I'll make another one.
He just needs solar powered. Just give him like 2 hours of sunlight a day. He's good to go.
So let him survive off photosynthesis and make it half plant. So he sticks his arms
his
and
leaf
legs.
sticks out of his head. Yeah, his hands are leaves. So he puts them out the window every hour. What are you doing? Recharging.
He's
He comes back in. He types some code.
His roots are connected down into the ground. He's like, "What are you doing? Trying to get nutrients. I'm eating here, man."
You just see one of the trees slowly dying outside. He's like, yes, I'm awake now. Like,
oh shoot! Right.
Just sucking it dry.
Tree vampires.
That's right. Like, what happened to the Amazon rainforest? Dude, I had to write some code, so I just sucked it right up.
Gone. Gone and gone.
It was delicious. You know, those trees, baby. Flavor.